Kim Ha-jun thinks back on the dying game The Heroic Tales of Rokyo Academy, a game he casually played for a year even after it started falling apart. On April Fool's Day, the game's creators push one last absurd event update, and Ha-jun can only laugh at how shamelessly broken it looks. From the event's random skill box, he pulls Supreme Fortitude and Time Stop, two ridiculous cheat-level skills with no cooldown. Ha-jun realizes Time Stop could let him brute force the last endings, but with the game shutting down in 3 days, the whole thing suddenly feels pointless. He decides not to get dragged back in, because in 3 days he is supposed to start life as a proper office worker instead of rotting in his room with a game. To make sure he cannot relapse, Ha-jun grimly deletes all 5 of his fully built characters, including the last unfinished one. Lying on his bed afterward, he tells himself he has to start living seriously, because his savings are nearly gone and he has no family to fall back on. He decides that tomorrow he will at least go outside and walk around, then closes his eyes and falls asleep. But after he drops off, the computer that should be off suddenly powers back on by itself, bathing the room in a pale eerie glow. When he next looks in a mirror, Ha-jun is staring at a silver-haired, red-eyed young stranger and a familiar Rokyo Academy status window floating in front of him. His disbelief gives way to a sick realization that this is real and he has somehow been dropped into the game itself as an extra. A synchronization bar stuck at 99% finally finishes, and his body visibly shifts as the silver hair and red eyes fade away. The new window names the body as Liber Lafelton Fillerman, and Ha-jun is stunned to realize he has become the one deleted character whose ending he never saw. Then the system demands a new name, as if he is being forced to define this life from scratch. He enters Kim Ha-jun and confirms it, even after the warning says the choice can never be undone. Once the setup completes, the status window updates to his own name, and even labels his occupation with a humiliating NET tag. Trying to get his bearings, he searches the house and realizes it is larger than his old place and apparently occupied by only one person. A letter on the table catches his eye, and the writing is familiar enough to make his stomach drop before he even opens it. Before he can read it, the system throws up a main quest ordering Kim Ha-jun to enroll in Rokyo Academy and flatly says refusal will trigger compulsion. He protests that his stats are awful for this, and the next instant the system teaches him what compulsion means by racking him with body-tearing pain. By the day of the entrance exam, compulsion has forced Ha-jun onto a bus for academy applicants, and he sits there looking openly miserable. The bus safety instructor notices Ha-jun's foul mood and quietly warns him to get his emotions under control before the exam starts. Ha-jun cannot possibly explain that he was dragged into this world and forced onto this bus, so he swallows his frustration and listens. The instructor adds that students like this usually fail, and that blunt concern finally gets through to Ha-jun. Ha-jun apologizes for his attitude and decides he needs to focus on passing, because failing the main quest could be even worse. That brief calm shatters in a tunnel when the bus horn blares and a huge black hooded man appears directly in front of the vehicle. The driver slams the brakes, but the man casually catches the bus with both hands and forces it to a stop anyway. With absurd ease, the intruder moves to the side and starts peeling open the bus gate like thin paper. The instructor lunges to stop him, but Armstrong catches the punch and crushes the man's hand so brutally that the bus erupts and screams. When the fallen instructor finally sees the face under the hood, his resistance dies on the spot because he recognizes the Class A villain Armstrong. The students hear the name Armstrong and instantly panic, because he is infamous for tearing people apart with his bare hands. One cold order from Armstrong freezes the whole bus, and then he asks for a single name, Lee Jua. Ha-jun recognizes that name at once and remembers the prologue route. If events stay on script, Jua dies here and everyone on this bus dies with her. Looking to the very back, he spots a beautiful long-haired girl trembling with her head down and realizes she must be Lee Jua. What shocks Ha-jun most is that he still is not panicking, and he quickly understands supreme fortitude is flattening his fear into cold focus. Armstrong notices Ha-jun's lack of fear and pauses to ask what kind of idiot is still staring him down. Armstrong decides to deal with that odd student later and turns back toward Jua, ready to continue the massacre. Right then the system drops another impossible order on Ha-jun: defeat the Class A villain Armstrong. He internally curses the system, but with everyone doomed and compulsion hanging over him, Ha-jun knows this insane fight is his only move. Seeing him stand, Armstrong bursts out laughing at the absurd sight of a weak exam student trying to stop him. Ha-jun says only one word, stop, and activates time stop. The instant time starts moving again, Armstrong's laughter breaks into a wet choke as he suddenly vomits blood and crashes to the floor. On the attacked bus, the ticking suddenly drags to a halt, and the whole tunnel freezes mid-chaos except for Kim Ha-jun. Instead of panicking, Ha-jun coldly decides his best move is simple: kill Armstrong now, before that future monster kills him later. He first tries the obvious route and searches the students' bags for a weapon, hoping one genius kid brought something rare enough to work. That plan dies immediately when he discovers frozen objects are locked shut and hard as stone inside stop time. So Ha-jun gives up on the bus, steps outside into the frozen tunnel, and starts looking for another way to make a killing blow stick. When his shoulder bumps a shard of floating glass and it actually shifts, Ha-jun realizes suspended debris can still be moved. He flicks the glass again to confirm it, and the result gives him his first real opening since time stopped. Following that clue, Ha-jun finds a crashed vehicle and a cloud of floating debris, including far more glass to work with. Then he tests another rule by slamming a shard against the ground, and the glass refuses to break at all. That tells him frozen debris has absurd durability, and his mood finally lifts because now he has materials strong enough to gamble on Armstrong's body. After a full day in stop time, Ha-jun accepts the grim truth that he still cannot directly kill Armstrong while time is frozen. So he bets on a nastier workaround: stack force over time by hammering floating objects into place and letting the impact release when time resumes. He starts the brutal routine, repeatedly striking the floating rock against the glass like driving a nail into a tree. Because Armstrong's body is monstrously tough, Ha-jun keeps at it for days, patiently stacking more and more force instead of rushing. By the third extra day, Ha-jun finishes the setup and even pins glass at Armstrong's arm and leg tendons in case the heart shot fails. Satisfied at last, Ha-jun taunts Armstrong's frozen face and drops the time stop to see if his trap will hold. The tunnel erupts back to life in one rush, and the buried force finally releases. The glass flashes forward too fast to see and punches straight through Armstrong's heart before shattering inside him. Armstrong crashes down coughing blood and stares at Ha-jun in disbelief, demanding to know what he did. Ha-jun answers with brutal indifference and tells him to hurry up and die. In a last desperate burst, Armstrong swells his muscles and tries to rise, but his tendons fail exactly as Ha-jun planned. Panic finally hits him when he realizes his body is finished, and a moment later the Class A villain bleeds out and dies. The stunned students and instructors all turn toward Ha-jun, but after 3 sleepless days he just drops into a seat and cashes in his hard-earned collapse. As he dozes off, the system quietly confirms the main quest is complete and pays out the reward for killing Armstrong. Ha-jun wakes later in a hospital bed, confused because he is perfectly healthy aside from sleeping for 3 straight days. Then he notices the visitor at his bedside and immediately guesses this is not a social call but an interrogation. The old man confirms Ha-jun defeated Armstrong, and Ha-jun recognizes him as Principal Choi Jung-won, the legendary sage of Rokia Academy. Choi gets straight to the point and asks Ha-jun's true identity while his blue eye flickers with lie-detecting magic. Ha-jun answers cleanly that he is no villain, just an ordinary student who came to take the entrance exam, and he holds that stare without flinching. When Choi drops the magic and laughs in approval, he becomes even more convinced this unknown boy is something extraordinary. Choi even offers to enroll him immediately as a special student and broadcast his fame across the country. Ha-jun instantly sees the trap and says he wants to live a long life, because public credit would paint a target on his back. So Ha-jun chooses the safer path: keep the killer's name secret, cancel any special treatment, and let him take the academy entrance exam normally. Choi reveals he already silenced the witnesses, then unexpectedly bows his head and sincerely thanks Ha-jun for saving the students and instructors. Ha-jun brushes the heroics aside and says he killed Armstrong because he did not want to die either, which only makes Choi misread him as even more terrifying. When Ha-jun says he feels fine, Choi reveals he delayed the entrance exam by 3 days just for him and asks if he can take it soon. That night in his office, Choi keeps thinking about Ha-jun and cannot shake how absurdly strong and strangely bored the boy seemed. He compares Ha-jun to this year's flood of prodigies and decides even that golden generation now looks smaller next to the boy who killed a Class A villain. By the next day, Ha-jun takes the written exam and only does well enough to pass, because basic hero rules are all he needs for now. He is far less worried about the practical exam, since a man who can stop time should never be failing basic survival tests. At the final practical, each candidate enters a separate artificial dungeon, and Ha-jun steps through his assigned gate as student number 256. Inside the silent dungeon, Ha-jun sees his wrist stopwatch already counting and reminds himself he only needs to pass without drawing dangerous attention. He thinks about the top applicant Han Seung and decides there is no reason to outshine him, because that kind of spotlight could expose Armstrong's killer. Then the system cuts in at the worst possible time and announces a penalty because Armstrong's death changed the future. The new main quest is brutal. He now has to enroll in Rokia Academy as head of the class. Ha-jun curses the system and immediately stops time again so he can think without the exam clock beating him. In the frozen dungeon, he quickly gives up on fixing the written score and accepts that practical results are his only way to steal first place. That means he now needs a practical performance so overwhelming that even a mediocre written score will not matter. He searches the frozen dungeon for floating materials like before, but this place offers far fewer useful pieces than the tunnel wreck did. Still, he grabs a stone from a frozen goblin and finds himself a hammer, even while muttering that he still needs a nail. Then the obvious answer hits him. If the goal is to impress everyone, he does not need a delicate trick at all. With a tired half-smirk, Ha-jun realizes the hammer is enough, because sometimes the best way to stand out is just to smash everything and head straight for the exit. Late that night after the entrance exam, instructor Jang Hyun-jun kept replaying student footage because he was still trying to find the boy who once saved him. A junior instructor wandered over, excitedly talking about the star applicants like number 74 and 125, but Jang barely reacted because his mind was elsewhere. Then Han Isol dropped a rumor that shook him. The Sword King candidate was not the top-ranked freshman. She showed him a hidden file labeled Class 1 Confidential, and said some instructors believed the real head of the class was student number 256. The moment Han Isol described that boy's sloppy exam outfit, Jang Hyunjun realized it had to be the same student who defeated Armstrong. When she mentioned that higher staff already had access, Jang immediately entered his instructor ID to unlock the sealed video himself. At first the footage only made the mystery worse, because the boy stood still for 4 whole minutes and looked like he might fail the test. Then Kim Ha-jun vanished from the screen in an instant, and the entire dungeon erupted into collapsing traps and exploding monster heads. A moment later he simply walked out with his hands in his pockets, finishing in 4 minutes 21 seconds and beating the Sword King candidate's time by 10 seconds. Shaken by what they had seen, Jang Hyunjun warned Han Isol never to talk about this video to anyone. That same night in the dorm, Ha-jun started poking at the system again and wondered how he was supposed to spend the 250 points he got for killing Armstrong. When he tried saying store out loud, a shop window finally opened and confirmed that was the trigger. The store itself was weirdly bare for him, offering only potions and a first skill unlock that stayed locked until level 5. That made him ask why he was still level 1, and the system answered with an ugly catch tied to his SSS skill stop time. Because of that skill, Ha-jun cannot gain normal experience at all and can only level through quests, leaving him furious at the system. The next day before the ceremony, Principal Choi Jung-won called Ha-jun in and bluntly confirmed why he was there. The top freshman had to read the academy oath. Ha-jun was not happy about it, because his quest to enroll as head of the class had already paid out the moment the principal named him first place. Choi even said he could try to cancel the oath if Ha-jun really hated it, and that brief opening made Ha-jun hesitate. Then the system shoved in a new quest with a 10-point reward for reading the oath, and that tiny payout was enough to make Ha-jun give up and accept. Delighted, Choi promised the academy would protect Ha-jun from the villains' alliance. But Ha-jun quietly decided he still had to stay on guard. On the day of the entrance ceremony, Ha-jun walked into a huge packed auditorium full of officials, guild leaders, heroes, reporters, and freshmen, and hated that he had to stand out in front of all of them. Running on no sleep after fighting with the system all night, he dropped into a random seat and planned to nap until the ceremony started. The hall suddenly erupted when Han Se-young arrived, and Ha-jun instantly recognized the black-haired Sword King prodigy he had seen so often in the game. Anna, Haruna, and Liam appeared right after him, and Ha-jun got a sinking feeling when he realized the biggest problem freshmen were all gathering in one class. Nearby students kept whispering that the rumored first-place irregular had beaten a Class A villain, but Ha-jun sat there stone-faced as if they were talking about someone else. Then Han Se-young walked over and sat down right beside him without a word, instantly ruining Ha-jun's last chance at peace. Ha-jun tried to convince himself it was just coincidence, but the weird choice still bothered him enough to make him get up and leave. Before he could escape, Anna stopped him and coolly asked him to give up the seat because she wanted that spot next to Han Se-young. Realizing he had been dragged into their little elite seating arrangement, Ha-jun gave a hollow laugh and moved to the far side of the auditorium instead. Once he found a quiet seat far away from the prodigies, Ha-jun finally relaxed enough to fall asleep. Back in the elite seats, Anna complained that Ha-jun had dared to look annoyed with her, and Liam teased her for always treating people like they were beneath her. Anna brushed Liam off, still convinced that people who did not interest her were too minor to matter. Meanwhile, behind the stage, student council members argued over who the top freshman would be, assuming it had to be Han Se-young unless the absurd irregular rumor was somehow true. Student council president Lee Ju-hee stayed quiet, because she already knew the winner was Kim Ha-jun and recognized him as her sister's benefactor. When the ceremony reached the enrollment declaration, the whole hall braced itself to hear Han Se-young's name. Instead, the announcement called Kim Ha-jun to the stage as the first freshman representative, and confusion rippled through the entire auditorium. Still looking bored, Ha-jun walked up to the platform while everyone stared at him and wondered what had just happened to Han Se-young's place. Then Ha-jun raised one hand and read the oath in a flat, unaffected voice, while the freshmen who were supposed to answer him stayed too stunned to say anything back. Right after the entrance ceremony, Kim Ha-jun clears the main quest for reading the oath, earns points and a big fame boost, and decides the principal's interview is not worth his time. Back in his dorm room, Ha-jun drops onto the bed and happily decides he is not moving again after the chaos of his first day. Someone knocks. Ha-jun tries to ignore it, and the system immediately throws him a subquest telling him to let the guests in. Grumbling that the system clearly knows how to corner him, Ha-jun gives up and drags himself to the door. When he opens the door, Ha-jun finds student council president Lee Ju-hee and her younger sister Lee Ju all waiting outside. He lets them in anyway, deciding it is smarter to settle this now than create trouble with the student council later. Ha-jun cuts straight to the point, and the sisters exchange a look before Ju-ah finally speaks. Lee Ju-ah bows deeply and thanks him for saving her, still shaken by the memory of the day Armstrong nearly killed everyone. Ju-ah breaks into sobs as she thanks him again, and Ha-jun has no idea how to handle such a heartfelt reaction. Lee Ju-hee gently comforts her sister and adds her own thanks, showing just how much Ju-ah means to her. Then Lee Ju-hee offers repayment in true Lee family fashion and tells Ha-jun to come to the student council if he ever needs anything. Ha-jun says he wants nothing for now, but once he realizes how useful that promise could become, he accepts with a small, satisfied smile. Meanwhile, outside the principal's office, Han Si-young and Anna wait for their interview and both brood over the mystery of the missing first-ranked student. Anna can barely hide her frustration that the gloomy boy she dismissed was actually the one who beat Han Si-young for first place. When Han Si-young asks how she even ended up beside him, Anna has no answer, because she truly had no idea who he was. The principal finally calls them in, and both step into Choi Jung-won's office under a pressure that is calm on the surface and heavy underneath. Choi Jung-won names them as gifted heirs to great legacies, then silently tests them with a wave of intimidation that makes both students brace with their own power. Once they hold their ground, the principal relaxes and praises them for surviving a test most people their age could not handle. Anna immediately asks about Ha-jun, and Choi Jung-won casually says the top student already finished his interview before they arrived. After a pause, Han Si-young asks the real question on his mind: did Kim Ha-jun truly defeat Armstrong? Choi Jung-won dodges the truth with a careful answer, saying rumors always grow larger and warning them not to disturb Ha-jun's quiet school life. Han Si-young accepts the answer at face value, and the interview ends with both students politely leaving the office. Alone at last, Choi Jung-won sighs that even after press control and silence orders, Ha-jun's rumors are still impossible to contain. He cannot understand why someone strong enough to crush Armstrong in one blow would want his power hidden so badly. Reading Ha-jun with his sage's eyes, Choi Jung-won senses not arrogance but exhaustion, as if the boy has already finished a life of revenge and only wants a quiet new start. Even so, the principal decides he has kept his promise for now and quietly leaves the rest of Ha-jun's path to Ha-jun himself. The next morning, Ha-jun wakes up already miserable, because returning to school life feels even worse to him than the army. After changing into his academy uniform, he checks his status window on the way to class and hates what he sees. His level has risen, but most of his stats are still pathetic by academy standards, leaving time stop as the one thing keeping him alive. He also knows the system itself is dangerous now, because after Armstrong, a random quest could shove him into another deadly mess at any moment. He reaches the express classroom, and the moment he steps inside, the room erupts in whispers about the rumored first-place student. The attention is a pain, but Ha-jun decides dropping out would be even more dangerous when the villain alliance is still out there, so the academy remains his safest fence. He spots an empty seat at the back by the window and takes it without hesitation. The stares keep coming, but Ha-jun is too tired to care and nods off almost immediately at his desk. When he wakes up, the first thing he sees is Han Si-young sitting right beside him with perfect posture, which instantly puts him on edge. Then he notices Anna seated directly in front of him too, and the fact that both of them have closed in around him feels even stranger. Ha-jun wants no part of whatever this is, and before he can figure it out, the instructor walks in and begins class. The man introduces himself as Lee Han, a famous elite instructor, and the class instantly buzzes because they know what kind of heroes he has trained. Ha-jun, on the other hand, realizes this only means hellish training is about to begin. Lee Han tells them to introduce themselves one by one, and the class still thinks this is just a normal first-day routine. The first student steps up confidently, but before he can finish his greeting, Lee Han's pressure crushes him and he collapses in terror. Lee Han simply says next, and when another student tries, he drops even faster, making the whole room realize the introductions were a test from the start. With brutal indifference, Lee Han marks the fallen students as eliminated, proving class has already become selection. When Han Si-young's turn comes, he grits his teeth, endures the intimidation head-on, and completes his introduction without breaking. Lee Han passes him immediately, clearly impressed that one student has finally survived the trial. Anna goes next and throws up a magic barrier to defend herself, but Lee Han's pressure cracks through it almost at once. She forces out her introduction anyway, and Lee Han gives her a grudging pass by the narrowest margin. Then Lee Han calls up Kim Ha-jun, the student everyone has been whispering about, and watches him approach with sleepy, careless steps that instantly irritate him. The moment Ha-jun stands in front of him, Lee Han unleashes concentrated killing intent strong enough to break an ordinary student on the spot. Ha-jun casually introduces himself as if nothing is happening, shrugs off the killing intent, and even ends with an absurd little fighting cheer. That is when Lee Han understands the truth. This is not raw talent but someone already accustomed to lethal danger like a veteran. Lee Han retracts his killing intent and passes him, and at that exact moment the system quietly marks the first part of Ha-jun's new main quest as complete. Right after the bravery test, Ha-jun sees a main quest telling him to get recognized by instructor Lee Han, and he instantly hates where this is going. Lee Han calls the students who pass forward, and Ha-jun steps up with Han Si-young, Anna, Haruna, and Liam even though he wanted to stay invisible. Ha-jun realizes Lee Han is choosing group leaders, and because there are too many strong candidates this year, he sees a chance to run. Ha-jun proudly raises his hand and blurts out that he is withdrawing, stunning the whole class with his shameless escape plan. Lee Han laughs, lets Ha-jun go back to his seat, and calmly appoints the remaining 4 as division leaders. Haruna turns pale and tries to copy Hajun's escape, but Lihan shuts her down for being too late, leaving her stuck with the job. With that settled, Lihan sends everyone to the afternoon field practice after weapon selection and lunch, and Hajun savors one rare win. Later at the weapon grounds, Lihan gathers the students before tables full of noble phantasms, and tells them these weapons will shape their lives. Lihan explains that the academy is handing out mostly rare and unique noble phantasms, with a few legendaries mixed in for students the weapons accept. As everyone chooses, Hajun notices Liam is the only main cast member here who actually needs a class weapon because his real one is too special to use. Hajun has no real weapon background beyond a rifle and kitchen-level knife work, so the whole choice gives him a headache. Then a table of blunt weapons catches his eye, and one long-handled rusted hammer suddenly feels just right. The instant Hajun grabs the rusted hammer, urgent system alerts appear and an emergency quest tells him to break the curse on King Holton's weapon, Maharaj. A violent purple curse pours out of the hammer, the rust peels away into a golden form, and a giant furious woman manifests out of the weapon. The cursed spirit roars that a low-born man touched a king's weapon, and Lihan lunges toward Hajun with both daggers drawn. Hajun cuts the chaos off by activating time stop before anyone else can reach him. In the silent stopped world, Hajun remembers Maharaj was a briefly mentioned cursed legendary that even Liam avoided. Not knowing any proper cure, Hajun tests the cursed body's solidity and settles on the simplest answer he has: hit it with the hammer. He tests the idea with 3 hard swings, but when he briefly lets time move again, the curse shows almost no change. So Hajun gives up on finesse and spends hours in stop time hammering the curse over and over until he is completely worn down. After another long round of hammering, he finally releases time and the damage erupts all at once across the spirit's whole body. Lihan, rushing in from outside the stop time effect, can only stare as the cursed woman is shredded apart by damage he never saw Hajun deal. The giant woman begs for it to stop, but her head bursts apart, and the last golden smoke is sucked back into the hammer. Hajun gives the restored hammer a satisfied test swing, as if all that chaos was just annoying extra work. Lihan comes over hard-faced to check Hajun's condition, but Hajun answers that he is fine even while looking worn out from the hidden ordeal. A success alert pops up, the emergency quest clears, and Hajun quietly levels up while everyone is still trying to process what they saw. Most of the students decide it was just an old weapon's backlash fading out on its own, so Hajun avoids serious suspicion. Liam looks openly disappointed, realizing the cursed hammer he passed on would have been an amazing pickup if the backlash was really that harmless. Han Seyoung is not fooled at all, because he noticed Hajun had shifted position in a way he could not track with his eyes. Once Lihan gathers the class again, Han Seyoung has to set that suspicion aside and move on with everyone else. Thinking back on the stop-time fight, Hajun can only grimace at the fact that his brilliant curse solution was just hitting it for hours. After clearing the quest, he even uses the frozen world to collapse under a shady tree and steals several hours of badly needed sleep. When normal time catches back up, Hajun wakes aching all over and regrets that he cannot just admit the truth and gets sent to the infirmary. For the afternoon practical, Lihan lines up the class into 4 vertical teams and sends them into a beast hunting exercise. A sub-quest pops up telling Hajun to hunt 25 magical beasts. But after the chaos with Maharaj, he decides to take this one easy. In Anna's team, Hajun falls badly behind as the others move through the forest at speeds his ordinary body simply cannot match. The team stops in irritation, and 2 of Anna's other members openly complain that Hajun is dragging everyone down while the rest look just as fed up. Rather than expose himself with time stop, Hajun tells them to go on without him and gives up on keeping pace. The team wastes no time leaving him behind, with Anna giving him one last hard look before turning away. Left on his own, Hajun slows to a stroll through the forest and listens to the distant sounds of the other teams already fighting. When he finally reaches Anna's group, he finds them nearly finished with a huge black-furred beast called a black dog and settles in to watch. One of Anna's teammates rushes in to finish the black dog, gets thrown back by its last violent struggle, and then charges again in anger. That reckless charge makes things worse when giant bees start crawling out of the ground right under the attacker. Anna shouts for everyone to get a grip, but more and more bees keep emerging until a whole swarm surrounds the still-living black dog fight. Seeing the team trapped between the wounded black dog and a fresh swarm, Hajun finally decides they need his help after all. And at the cliff edge of the fight, Hajun quietly enters his stop-time world again as he moves toward the chaos. As Team 1 gathers for the hunt, Anna shakes hands and sizes up her teammates with a cool scout's eye instead of treating them like friends. Anna quietly marks Ma Jinhan as talented but untrustworthy, and the other 2 as usable but still uncertain. The one Anna really wants to judge is Kim Hajun, because even her information network could barely dig up anything about him. She remembers the wild rumor that Kim Hajun killed Armstrong in one blow, and even after dismissing it, his nerve under Lihan's killing intent still bothers her. But when the practical starts, Anna is stunned to see top-ranked Kim Hajun lagging behind, panting like someone with terrible stamina. Anna starts deciding he may just be dead weight, right up until Hajun bluntly tells the team to stop waiting for him. Anna immediately pushes the team forward, while Ma Jinhan loudly blames Hajun for dragging them down. At the target clearing, Anna locks down the black dog with restraint magic and the team starts wearing it down the right way. The moment the beast looks tired, Ma Jinhan gets cocky, ignores the warning, and jumps in to choke it with his bare arm. The black dog throws him off in one violent burst, and Ma Jinhan crashes across the ground into a tree. Worse, the spot where Ma Jinhan rolled erupts with giant ground bees, and one mistake turns the whole hunt into a swarm disaster. Anna drops in front of the others and braces to save the team, trapped between the still-living black dog behind them and the bee swarm in front. Just as Anna starts casting stronger fire magic, she spots Kim Hajun strolling toward the disaster and tries to stop him. Then Hajun vanishes, and the bees' heads start bursting all around the field before anyone even understands what he did. Hajun suddenly appears with the huge hammer and, as if this is a nuisance, tells Anna to stop hesitating and deal with the black dog instead. Even Ma Jinhan's sudden headache turns out to be Hajun's petty payback for causing this mess. From Hajun's side, this is not heroism at all, just a desperate effort to keep the team from failing the practical and ruining his day. Inside his time stop, Hajun has already tested Maharaj enough to trust it, and even takes a moment to smack the reckless Ma Jinhan on the back of the head 3 times. Still inside stop time, Hajun goes B by B and crushes their heads so the others can finish the black dog without getting overrun. He refuses to waste energy on the black dog himself, betting that Anna, Millie, and Cheon Inhan can finish that part once the swarm is gone. When Hajun restarts time, the bees burst apart all at once, and a quest window confirms he cleared the beast kill requirement with bonus rewards. While Hajun cleans the swarm off their backs, Anna resets the formation and the other two drive their weapons in for the kill. The black dog finally crashes down, ending the official hunt, but everyone's attention turns straight back to Hajun. They watch in shock as bees keep dying in every direction around Hajun, like he is deleting the swarm faster than they can track. For Anna, the scene hits like a wound, because the feeling Hajun drags out of her is the same inferiority she once felt when she first saw Han Si-young. Hajun breaks her daze with a blunt order: take the others and leave, because he will catch up after holding the endless swarm back. Anna's tone shifts without her noticing, and she asks almost politely if he can really escape on his own. She swallows her questions, trusts his confidence, and leads the battered team out of the clearing. The second they are gone, Hajun stops time again to deal with the fresh wave crawling up from underground. Inside frozen time, a new system notice interrupts Hajun's exhaustion and reveals a job change quest for defeating 100 magical beasts, along with Maharaja's former dwarf king master and the title crusher. Later, Li Han reviews the practical and judges Han Si-young's team the fastest, but Liam Martell's team earns the stronger mark for really understanding time, safety, and teamwork. He gives Harnaruel's group only a murky middle score, then turns to the last and messiest result, Anna's group. Li Han zeroes in on Kim Hajun as the biggest problem in the class, because Hajun is absurdly capable but acts like he could not care less. Li Han deducts points from both Hajun and Ma Jinhan, and the split reaction says everything. Hajun accepts it, while Ma Jinhan explodes in protest. Li Han refuses to spell it out, leaving Ma Jinhan too dense to realize the penalty is for nearly getting his team killed. Hajun almost pities him, then adds insult to injury by calling him friend and cheerfully patting him on the shoulder before walking off. After class and a satisfying buffet dinner, Hajun heads back to the dorm full, tired, and ready to collapse. That mood dies when he finds Anna waiting outside his room, smiling like she has come for unfinished business. Anna opens by poking at how carefree he looks, and Hajun cuts straight through it with one tired demand: business. He reluctantly follows her to a cafe anyway, clearly planning to end this conversation as fast as possible. Anna starts with an apology for the entrance ceremony, and Hajun instantly accepts it and tries to leave, proving he has no interest in small talk. Forced to drop the act, Anna asks the real question at last: who exactly is Kim Hajun? Her sage's eye quietly activates to test his words, and Hajun realizes she did not come here to apologize at all. Hajun slams his drink onto the table hard enough to rattle her, warning her again to get to the point and stop playing games. That reaction rattles Anna, because it looks alarmingly close to him, already knowing what her eyes can do. Still pushing, Anna asks the dangerous question outright: was he the student who killed Armstrong? Hajun gives her nothing but a dry, mocking reply about still believing rumors, then walks out and leaves Anna staring after him in shock. Back in his dorm after talking with Anna, Hajun tries to steady himself with one simple thought: whatever Anna thinks of him, he wants out of her business. He opens his status window and sees small gains in fame and stats, but the numbers still look painfully flimsy for someone who could die from one good hit. Even so, Hajun clings to the one thing keeping him alive. As long as time stop works, he does not plan to die for some stupid reason. Then he checks Maharaj and is stunned to learn the hammer is actually a legendary relic loaded with rare traits, including evolution, size and weight control, and a curse called Pyrotin. The hammer feels suspiciously light in his hand, so Hajun decides to test it and bluntly orders whatever is inside to show itself. Golden light floods the room, and in the next instant Hajun is standing inside Maharaj's inner world, a peaceful field that feels real even though he knows it is not. At the center of the field, Hajun finds a woman in a plain white dress sitting calmly on a rock, as if she has been waiting for him. Ha-jun skips the polite approach and tells the spirit to get out while he is still asking nicely, but she only stares at him and says this space is her home. What throws him off is her mood. This spirit attacked him before, but now there is no rage in her at all, only a quiet, almost resigned calm. Piraten finally explains the change. She now recognizes Ha-jun as her master, not because he has magic, but because his fighting style reminded her of her former king, Holton. That answer is strange enough, but Piraten pushes further and says true ownership still requires a trial left behind by Holton. When Ha-jun asks what the second trial is, Piraten drops the answer coldly: kill 100 beasts, and 50 are already counted. A quest window pops up and confirms it. Maharaja's title quest really does demand 100 magical beasts before Ha-jun can claim the title crusher. Ha-jun can live with the hunt, but Piraten accidentally gives him another clue. She seems completely unaware of what happens inside his stop time. He quietly concludes that objects may move with him during time stop while their spirits do not, which is not perfect news, but it is useful. Piraten offers him a chance to walk away, but Ha-jun does not answer right away and spends a long moment weighing how easy this king-class quest feels compared with how dangerous it should be. His suspicion pays off when Piraten adds the catch: just any 50 beasts will not count, because she alone chooses which ones qualify. Then she names the reward, and that changes everything. Clear the trial and Maharaja's remaining traits will unlock, even for a master with no magic. That reward is exactly what Ha-jun needs, so he accepts the trial on the spot. The next morning at Rokyo Academy's training square, the special class gathers with excited nerves when Li-han announces a practical combat lesson. Ha-jun is much less thrilled, because the moment he sees the class setup he can already guess the system is about to dump another main quest on him. The quest confirms it. To clear this one, Ha-jun has to win a team fight. Li-han explains the yellow combat circle and its healing barrier, turning the class into a place where students can fight brutally without actually dying. When Li-han calls Ha-jun's name first, Ha-jun steps into the circle expecting another student, only to realize the instructor himself is walking in after him. Li-han ignores Ha-jun's protest and tells the class no student here can really handle him, so the instructor will be the example opponent instead. That one sentence detonates across the square, because now the entire class is wondering if Ha-jun is somehow above even Han Si-young and Anna. Ha-jun tries to back out, but Li-han shuts that down, and Ha-jun knows the system's coercion will force him anyway if he refuses. The moment he grips Maharaj, Piraten's voice pops up with unhelpful enthusiasm and suggests adding Li-han to Ha-jun's trial list too. As soon as the healing barrier rises, Li-han goes completely serious and hurls 4 daggers at once, because his battle sense is already screaming that this student is dangerous. Ha-jun moves first in a blur too fast for the class to follow, and in the next instant Li-han crashes to one knee with his ankle twisted at a grotesque angle. Instead of getting angry, Li-han bursts into delighted laughter, genuinely impressed by what just hit him. Outside the barrier, the class can only stare because no one actually saw the attack, only the instructor dropping first. For Ha-jun, the result is simpler. 2 main quests flash complete at once, including the one about earning this instructor's recognition. After the match, Ha-jun returns to his place, and Li-han turns the whole thing into a lesson by asking the class what they learned from that fight. Ma Jin-han breaks the silence with the sharpest question in the room: did Li-han actually see Ha-jun's move? Li-han bounces the question back to Ha-jun, and Ha-jun gives the safest answer he can. If Li-han had fought like a real villain instead of a teacher, Ha-jun would have died. Li-han approves that answer and uses it to hammer home a brutal rule: the techniques heroes learn are still killing arts, and against real villains hesitation can get you killed. When Li-han demands a direct answer, Han Si-young says it plainly: those arts exist to kill someone, and Li-han immediately marks that as the correct mindset. Then Li-han makes things worse for Ha-jun by holding him up as the rare case skilled enough to even think about subduing a villain without killing them. The class instantly turns that into full-blown rumor fuel, and whispers spread that Ha-jun may really be the student who one-shot Armstrong. Ha-jun keeps his mouth shut, because even if villains could not kill him easily, the raids and kidnappings that follow exposure would wreck his peace. Li-han approaches him afterward and asks the question that matters to him most now: does Ha-jun have an ability? Ha-jun admits that he does, and Li-han's reaction is pure admiration, because abilities are rare enough that most people never awaken one at all. Ha-jun immediately tries to use his battered body as an excuse to leave, but Li-han refuses and keeps him in class anyway. Later in the academy infirmary, Ha-jun finally gets a bed and starts thinking less about class and more about how to beat the system's coercion. He reasons that the punishment may not control his body directly at all and might simply overwhelm him with pain until he obeys. That thought triggers the breakthrough. If he can find a noble phantasm that nullifies impact or pain, he may be able to block the coercion itself. Then he remembers a hidden weapon from the game, an easy-mode noble phantasm sleeping inside a Korean dungeon, and decides to go after it. The next day, after a long trip, Ha-jun arrives in Imsil, a region famous in this world not for cheese but for dungeons. He is not here to grind monsters like normal adventurers. He is chasing an Easter egg noble phantasm hidden somewhere inside the monster field dungeon. At the checkpoint desk, Ha-jun signs in and asks to enter alone, but the staff immediately balks at sending a young-looking first-timer into the dungeon solo. Ha-jun shows his Rokia Academy student ID, and the staff's tone flips at once from irritated to respectful. But even that does not solve the real problem, because dungeon policy still forbids a first exploration done completely alone. That restriction matters because Ha-jun needs privacy to search for the hidden weapon, so he quickly changes plans and pulls out his phone. His workaround is simple: hire a mercenary through an app, use the man as a legal partner, and let local knowledge do the searching for him. A nearby mercenary responds fast, and 10 minutes later Park Cheol-ho shows up, bald, rough-looking, and a little too eager. Instead of wandering blind, Ha-jun asks if Park Cheol-ho knows a landmark shaped like AV, because that is the clue he remembers from the game. Park Cheol-ho immediately recognizes the place, which makes Ha-jun's search a lot easier. To keep the guide motivated, Ha-jun sweetens the deal and promises him all the monster loot as long as he leads the way safely. Park Cheol-ho beats his chest and promises a safe, comfortable route, playing the part of a seasoned veteran guide. The two head toward the checkpoint together, with Park Cheol-ho taking the lead and Ha-jun following behind into the dungeon route. Ha-jun cannot see it from behind, but as Park Cheol-ho leads him forward, the mercenary is secretly grinning to himself. At the Imsil checkpoint, a staff member quietly warns Ha-jun that Park Cheol-ho has a grim reputation and that some past employers died or vanished in dungeons. Park Cheol-ho jumps in with a practice sob story, admitting he used to be in a gang and blaming the rumors on prejudice while begging for the chance to work. Ha-jun decides the rumors do not matter as long as Cheol-ho knows the route, and he heads into the dungeon with him anyway. Inside the damp cave dungeon, Park Cheol-ho proves much chattier than useful, talking non-stop about his old dream of entering Rokia Academy while Ha-jun tunes him out. When three monsters finally lunge out, Ha-jun freezes time and calmly lines up their deaths before the attack can even land. The moment time resumes, all three monsters burst apart at the head, and Park Cheol-ho applauds in stunned admiration. Cheol-ho's admiration turns greedy when he realizes Ha-jun's hammer might be a legendary noble phantasm, and his eyes keep drifting back to it. As the trip drags on, Ha-jun notices they keep running into too many monsters and starts suspecting Cheol-ho is deliberately farming danger for extra byproducts. Even after figuring it out, Ha-jun swallows the irritation and keeps using Cheol-ho, because searching this huge dungeon alone would be worse. After another long slog, Cheol-ho suddenly spots a broad rocky clearing and rushes toward it with suspicious excitement. The trap snaps shut in the clearing when hidden bandits pour out, surround Ha-jun with hooked ropes and guns, and drop a magic blocker around him. Cheol-ho drops the act completely, boasting that Ha-jun cannot use his strange skill or the hammer properly without magic, and orders everyone to kill him and take Maharaj. A moment later the ambush is ruined, with bandits smashed across the ground and Cheol-ho babbling desperate praise as he begs for mercy. Ha-jun gives Cheol-ho one last warning and forces him to keep guiding the way instead of wasting any more time. A few minutes later they finally reach the V-Rock, the exact hidden spot Ha-jun remembered from the game. Before Cheol-ho can slink away, Ha-jun plants his face into the ground and leaves him there so he can finish the job alone. Ha-jun stops time again and hammers the V-Rock apart, because unlike normal dungeon rocks this Easter egg one can actually be broken. When time resumes, the shattered rock erupts in brilliant light and reveals the hidden prize Ha-jun came here for. Ha-jun recognizes it at once as the Bracelet of Insensitivity, a hidden noble phantasm powerful enough to rival the system's control. The instant the bracelet appears, the system lashes out with urgent main quests telling Ha-jun to leave the dungeon and destroy it, which proves the item threatens the system itself. Instead of obeying, Ha-jun grabs the bracelet and deliberately triggers the system's punishment, betting everything on the bracelet blocking it. Violent foreign energy surges through Ha-jun's body, but he keeps laughing because the bracelet blocks the pain and the system's coercion starts to weaken. For one ecstatic instant, Ha-jun believes he has finally escaped the system's tyranny and won back his freedom. That relief dies immediately when the system window cracks, turns red, and transforms into a far more dangerous quest instead of disappearing. The new red main quest binds Ha-jun's life to 4 classmates, and if Han Si-young, Anna, Harna, or Liam fail to graduate with him, he dies. Once the shock settles, Ha-jun feels hollow and furious, because the bracelet destroyed the old coercion but replaced it with a red game over quest tied to real death. Because he knows the game, Ha-jun immediately realizes what the red quest really means. Each main character will hit a life or death branch with a major villain waiting behind it. A follow-up warning says the system has aired out, and no more main quests will appear for now, which is a small mercy even though the bracelet was broken in the process. With his own life now on the line, Ha-jun finally stops thinking about staying uninvolved and decides he has to intervene in the other stories starting with Anna's first red quest. 2 weeks later, on the day of the external joint exercise, Ha-jun boards Rokia Academy's winged bus but spends the flight worrying about the deadly choice waiting in Anna's route. He tells himself this new quest is still better than blind coercion, because at least now he knows the goal and can choose to fight for it. His thoughts are interrupted when Li Jua spots him on the same bus and shyly comes over, clearly happy to see him. Ha-jun tells Jua to drop the formal speech, and she turns even redder before slipping into the seat beside him. When Hajun learns Jua is in support because she thinks she lacks talent compared to her sister, he quietly realizes that judgment is completely wrong. Piraten suddenly starts fussing inside Hajun's head, saying Jua has been chosen by a divine beast even though Hajun cannot see the sign himself. Piraten describes the thing clinging to Jua as a giant fang wolf that could one day become a world-devouring monster or a divine guardian, and Hajun immediately connects that to summoning talent. Once Hajun hears Jua's mother was a summoner, and that low-level summoning test failed her, he realizes the problem was not her lack of talent but the test itself. He bluntly tells Jua to find a top-grade summoner and try again, because someone chosen by a beast like that would never answer to a cheap setup. Jua accepts the advice like simple encouragement and smiles, while Hajun leaves it at that and tries to rest. The wing bus lands, and Hajun realizes with some suspicion that he and Jua have ended up in the same support group too. Hajun starts to suspect the student council president arranged this, and he does not like the idea of Jua being pushed into danger without understanding it. Their destination turns out to be the enormous Nefertum Hotel, a luxury landmark so huge that even Hajun is thrown off by the scale. At the entrance, the hotel's general manager Yusiala greets the students, and her white hair, black dress, and cool authority make an immediate impression. Yusiala and Anna greet each other like old acquaintances, and the students instantly start buzzing over seeing a famous awakened genius in person. Yusiala expects Han Si-young to be the top student sent to support her site, so she is genuinely confused when Anna says he is in another group. Her confusion gets worse when Anna points out that the class topper is actually Hajun, who looks exhausted enough to be the least impressive person in the group. When Yusiala asks his name and comments on his rank, Hajun breezily claims he only won because Han Si-young probably had a stomachache, which leaves her staring at him in disbelief. Yusiala decides Hajun is a very strange man and quietly marks him for later investigation before leading the students inside. Walking into the hotel, Juan nervously says Yusiala seems scary, and Hajun bluntly agrees because she judges people only by their value and discards the useless without hesitation. Hajun warns Jua not to catch Yusiala's attention in the wrong way, and Jua timidly agrees as they follow her deeper into the hotel. In Yusiala's office, Anna reunites with her over tea while the student supporters are being assigned around the hotel. Anna quietly says she may not be needed here, especially with Yusiala already protected by a famous scarred bodyguard. Yusiala immediately tells Anna she is special, and that if something unavoidable happens, Anna is still the one she would trust most. Anna understands Yusiala pulled her out of the rough field training partly to protect her, and she accepts the favor without pretending it was meaningless. When they briefly talk about some, Yusiala admits with a bitter smile that Anna is now her only hope, and Anna cannot laugh that off. Yusiala then brightens on purpose and asks about the student who ranked first this time, Kim Hajun. Anna can only answer that Kim Hajun is hard to explain, and that Yusiala should see him herself instead of trusting her judgment. That only makes Yusiala more curious, so she stands up on the spot and decides they should go inspect him in the main hall after training. Instead of a sharp top student on duty, they find Kim Hajun asleep on a sofa in the middle of the hotel lobby, snoring in his bodyguard suit, while guests stare. Yusiala freezes in disbelief, and even her staff can tell she is seconds away from exploding. When a staff member gently wakes him up, Hajun just opens his eyes, stretches, and asks Yusiala a lazy why. When Hajun blandly says he was just sleeping, Yusiala forces a smile and orders him to follow her somewhere private before she explodes in public. Yusiala also orders Anna to come along, because she wants both of them in the room for what comes next. The moment the office door closes, Yusiala snaps and demands to know what Hajun thinks he is doing. Hajun deadpans that he was working, then immediately attacks her double standard by pointing out she drank tea with Anna instead of treating the students equally. Yusiala yells that Anna is her personal guard, and Hajun keeps needling her until she finally shouts outright. Hajun even laughs that she finally looks her real age, and that lands even worse than the sleeping. When Yusiala threatens his evaluation, Hajun says she can skip the score and just leave him alone for the rest of the day, promising he will help her once later. Yusiala rejects the offer and threatens to call the academy, but Hajun answers with a lazy goodbye and walks out anyway. After he leaves, Yusiala can only call him insane and orders the staff to move him somewhere else and keep him out of the main hall. Hajun changes clothes, heads to the hotel pool, and settles into a lounge chair under the sun like he is on vacation. He leisurely sips the oddly named pink lemon Copacabana and enjoys the peace, because he already knows the real chaos will start tonight. In his head, Hajun treats today's score as meaningless, because he already knows a villain attack will wreck the training before morning. Late that night on the rooftop, Lee Jua asks where he has been, and Hajun casually lies that he was busy working in the main hall. The two of them fall into a quiet moment together, just watching the stars and city lights in silence. Then Hajun suddenly tells Jua not to come downstairs no matter what, and turns to leave before she can get a proper explanation. Jua notices how exhausted he looks and tries to cheer him on, not realizing he is heading into a fight he already expects. Hajun lifts Maharaj onto his back, and the golden hammer begins to glow under the dark sky as he heads off to work. At the same time, Yusiala is still working alone in her office past 2 in the morning, finally finishing her paperwork with a tired stretch. Even while she tries to relax, Yuseola is still angrily stuck on how impossible Kim Ha-jun was earlier and vows to get rid of him tomorrow. That thought is cut off when the office lights suddenly die, and the whole room drops into an ominous blackout. The door bursts open, and Anna and the security chief rush in to warn Yuseola that something is badly wrong. At dawn outside the hotel, 2 tired bodyguards talk through their shift until one of them notices something strange near the protected entrance. Before they can react properly, the entire hotel loses power from top to bottom in a total blackout. A hidden attacker kills both front door bodyguards with flying daggers before either man can even call it in. 2 villains step out of the darkness, and dark purple gates open beside them to pour out matching reinforcements. The invaders slam a huge black curtain barrier around the hotel, sealing the whole building inside a dimensional separation field. Back inside, Yuseola, Anna, and Kan Yungan race through a dark hallway and spot the black curtain outside the window. Anna recognizes it instantly as a dimensional separation barrier, which means the attackers broke through the hotel's protection and outside help will not realize anything is wrong. Realizing the surveillance room is probably already compromised, Yuseola sends Kan Yungan alone to check the reserve power and security center. She then asks Anna for something harder: find whatever is blocking magic circulation in the hotel and destroy it as fast as possible. Anna agrees, then uses floating magic to launch herself out through the window and start hunting the barrier cores. Left alone, Yuseola quickly decides the villains will target her and use hostages, so the only move left is to stay free and buy time. She turns and runs for the roof just as countless footsteps start echoing through the hallway behind her. Meanwhile, Kan Yungan reaches the surveillance area and finds the reserve team already wiped out by infiltrators wearing guest disguises. When he examines one of the attackers, he realizes the enemy is not human at all but an empty doll body with no blood inside. That makes him identify the attacker as Puppeteer, an A-rank villain who can mass-produce and command huge numbers of dolls. Then the severed puppet head starts talking in a mechanical voice, and Puppeteer contacts him directly through the wreckage. Puppeteer orders Kan Yungan to bring Yuseola or he will kill 1 hostage for every minute of delay. When Puppeteer casually says he has already found her, Kan Yungan panics, crushes the puppet head, and sprints back toward Yuseola. In the middle of that run, the jammed radio suddenly clears and a relaxed boy's voice asks if anyone can hear him. The voice says the blocking stone has been destroyed, hears there are hostages in the main hall, and casually says he will save them. Kan Yungan tries to stop the reckless unknown kid, but less than a minute later the same voice says the situation is already over and the guests are coming upstairs. Then he hears a flood of footsteps and stares blankly as rescued people start rushing up the stairs exactly as promised. Elsewhere on the 35th floor, Yuseola ends up cornered in a dead-end corridor, bleeding from the abdomen and surrounded by villains and dolls. Puppeteer steps forward in his neat suit and mocks her for resisting, while making it clear he wants to capture her healing power alive. Even after hearing the guards have already been suppressed, Yuseola forces herself upright with the sword because she knows surrender would be worse. Puppeteer casually orders his side that cutting off her limbs is acceptable, and that finally shakes real fear out of her. Just then the radio starts crackling again, but Yuseola has no reason to believe that alone can save her from an A-rank villain. Then a familiar lazy voice comes through the radio, and Yuseola realizes it is Kim Ha-jun asking where she is. She tries to push him away and begs him to focus on the guests and students instead, but Ha-jun keeps cutting past that to one question: where are you? When his tone suddenly turns heavy and serious, Yuseola finally breaks, cries, and asks him to help her. After she tells him the end of the 35th floor hall, Ha-jun simply says he will be there soon. Puppeteer moves in to finish the capture, and Yuseola braces herself because she thinks she has asked for help too late. Then Kim Ha-jun is suddenly just there in front of her, scolding her for not answering faster, as if the impossible trip meant nothing. Before Puppeteer can even process it, Ha-jun tears through the packed hallway and blows apart the surrounding villains and dolls in a brutal instant. Puppeteer is left staring at the ruined hallway in disbelief as Ha-jun walks straight toward him with Maharaj on his shoulder. Ha-jun gives Puppeteer no explanation at all and kills him by crushing his head underfoot. With the threat gone, Ha-jun turns to the stunned Yuseola and tells her bodyguards will reach this floor soon, so she needs to run to the top floor immediately. He explains the bodyguards were only held back because of the hostages, and now the answer is to cut through anything blocking the way and keep moving. When Yuseola asks where he is going, Ha-jun says he still has to finish this and tells her to warn Anna never to come downstairs. The instant Nefertum goes dark, Ha-jun sprints into the stairwell with a torch because he knows the blackout means hidden radio blocking stones are active. Because he cannot sense the stones himself, Ha-jun searches the upper floors by questioning Piraten's unseen voice for directions between the 40th and 50th floors. Piraten pinpoints one last stone hidden in a flower pot, and Ha-jun digs it out like he has done this miserable job far too many times already. Once he has all 10 stones, Ha-jun drops them together and pulverizes them with Maharaj so the jammed radios can finally work again. After a quick farewell to Piraten's unseen voice, Ha-jun stops time again and heads straight for the center of the attack. In the frozen main hall, Ha-jun sees the first floor already overrun and spots the huge hooded villain Carton, the one fated to kill Anna if this goes wrong. Instead of fighting there immediately, Ha-jun slips outside and finds an ominous purple gate that was never part of the original game route. Even though the gate leads somewhere unknown, Ha-jun steps through because Yuseola's little sister has to be rescued before she becomes a hostage. On the other side, he lands in an abandoned factory lot packed with villains, but he keeps searching through them for one small captive. He finally spots Yusun, an unconscious white-haired girl draped over a villain's shoulder, exactly where the kidnapping plot would need her. Surrounded by nearly 100 villains, Ha-jun plants himself in the middle and starts clearing the room by force. When Yusun wakes up, she finds herself safely on Ha-jun's back and asks in a trembling voice who he is. Ha-jun simply says he is her sister's friend and that he is taking her back to Yuseola, and that plain answer is enough to calm her down. Back in the occupied main hall, security leader Lee Jun-ho quietly agrees with the second team leader to move together, with the second team evacuating guests while he stays behind. Just as the security team is about to move, everyone in the main hall goes still when Ha-jun calmly walks in through the ruined entrance with Yusun on his back. Someone in the hostage group finally recognizes Ha-jun as he lowers Yusun into the security team's care and asks them to watch her for a moment. Then Ha-jun grabs a security radio, promises he will open a path on the first floor, and orders the others to rush the guests up to the top floor. Before anyone can answer, Carton is suddenly blasted away and the villains around the hostages are smashed aside so fast that Ha-jun is barely visible at all. Shocked back into motion, the security teams rush the guests toward the stairwell and start pushing everyone upstairs. Carton climbs out of the wreckage admitting he never even saw the hit coming, while Puppeteer arrives to report that the abduction team and the hostage plan have both been wrecked. Instead of retreating, Carton gets excited and floods the hall with a suffocating aura while Puppeteer reminds him they only need Yuseol and Yusun alive if possible. Ha-jun strolls back up to the two villains, annoyed that even after 5 full days of beating Carton in stop time, he still could not put him down for good. Carton lowers his stance and his legs stretch grotesquely, making it clear he is about to use terrifying mobility instead of just brute force. In the next instant, Carton blasts straight through the hotel and reaches the 45th floor where the evacuation is happening, proving he can cross the building in less than a second. Dust and screams erupt on the 45th floor, and the evacuated guests go rigid when the S-class killer appears right in front of them. Anna recognizes the man who ruined her life, and Carton recognizes her too, calling her the biggest mistake he ever left alive. Just as Carton reaches for Anna, Ha-jun flashes in front of her and knocks the giant villain right back down through the broken opening. Anna immediately says she will help, but Ha-jun cuts her off and bluntly says he does not need it. When Anna protests, Ha-jun locks eyes with her and tells her the one thing she needs to hear. She is not just a mage, she is a sage, so she needs to think like one. Then Ha-jun disappears again, leaving Anna rattled and alone with her rage, her pride, and his strange advice. His words drag Anna straight back into the nightmare she never escaped, the rain-soaked night when Carton killed her brother in front of her. In that memory, Carton stands over Anna's brother's body with weapons buried in his back and coldly mocks the way people who try to protect others always die the same way. That same terror once triggered Anna's first awakening, when her grief exploded and the magic of the whole area answered her like a living tide. Down in the main hall, Carton laughs from the crater while Puppeteer finally grasps the problem. Ha-jun is so fast he reaches them before they can even notice him. Carton claims Ha-jun for himself, and Puppeteer answers by opening a black swamp behind him and flooding the hall with puppet bodies to retake the hostages. The puppet swarm does not even reach the stairs, because invisible attacks tear bodies apart so fast that Puppeteer's head bursts again in mid-command. Even Carton has to admire it, because Ha-jun's movement is now too fast to leave so much as an afterimage. Then Carton lunges at Ha-jun, and Ha-jun only barely survives by stopping time with Carton's fist hanging right in front of his face. Inside that stop time, Ha-jun goes back to the same brutal routine, hammering Carton over and over while forcing his own body to grow stronger through endless repetition. The problem is that growth is not enough, because after all that punishment Ha-jun still knows he cannot kill Carton yet. So Ha-jun switches goals and bets everything on the game's safer route, hold Carton and Puppeteer here until Anna makes the right choice and awakens properly. Up on the evacuation floor, Anna stands frozen between revenge and duty, still aching to chase Carton down despite Ha-jun's warning. Then another violent quake runs through the hotel, and the floor erupts into fresh panic as everyone feels the battle raging below. A little girl nearby breaks down in terror, and the sight hits Anna hard because it mirrors the helpless child she used to be. Anna walks over, strokes the girl's head, and promises that everything will be fine, finally understanding what Ha-jun meant by telling her to think like a sage. At last Anna makes her choice, turning away from personal revenge and deciding the wiser path is to stay here and protect the people she can still save. As Anna pushes herself to the limit, her sage eyes awaken harder than ever and the mana around her starts obeying her. Her left eye draws mana into usable power, her right eye feeds her unknown spells, and the great magic that once stopped Carton begins to take shape again. Down in the hotel lobby, Carton is thrilled to finally have a fight worth enjoying, while Ha-jun just looks fed up. Ha-jun knows exactly why this monster is so hard to kill, because Carton is a solo main villain with the force of an entire faction. Then Anna's voice crackles through the walkie-talkie and tells Hajun she is ready to cast if he can get upstairs. Hajun smiles for the first time, and even Carton feels the terrifying surge of magic gathering on the floor above. Carton instantly remembers the little girl whose great magic once humiliated him, and panic cuts through his excitement. He bulks up and tries to launch himself toward Anna, but Hajun freezes time at the exact moment he moves. When time starts again, Carton is already ruined and too late to understand what Hajun did to him. Blind and furious, Carton demands an explanation, but Hajun ignores him and tells Anna through the radio to activate the spell now. Carton tries to attack anyway, and Hajun coldly warns him to stay down because one wrong move will finish him. Hajun cannot truly kill Carton yet, but after a subjective month of beating him inside stop time, he has at least crippled him long enough to hold the line. Once Anna's barrier is about to go up, Hajun simply turns his back and leaves Carton behind. That retreat breaks Carton's pride worse than the pain, because for the first time he realizes he is afraid of Hajun. Carton explodes into a scream that shakes the whole hotel and starts rampaging in blind fury. Up on the 45th floor, Anna asks if Hajun has made it back yet, but Yuseola can only beg her to wait a little longer. Anna remembers Hajun's last order and realizes he stayed behind expecting to die just to buy her the time she needed. So Anna stops hesitating, grits through her tears, and unleashes the great magic. The barrier surges out across the hotel to keep everyone alive, and Anna collapses under the cost, apologizing for the one person she thinks had to be left behind. Then Hajun casually appears alive in front of them, leaving both girls staring like they have seen a ghost. Hajun cuts through their grief with a dry reminder that the villains are still alive, so the barrier has to stay up. Overwhelmed with relief, Anna and Yuseola rush in and hug him. Yuseola tearfully thanks Hajun for saving Anna, and he has no idea how to handle being thanked like this. Hajun quickly focuses them back on survival, and says they only need to hold out until morning so the outside world notices something is wrong. Anna swallows everything she wants to say and vows not to waste the time Hajun bought for them. All night long, more than 300 dolls and a raging Carton slammed themselves against the barrier trying to break in. But Anna's great magic was built for exactly this, and the barrier only grows tougher as the hours drag on. By morning, the shaking finally stops and the barrier begins to fade away. The survivors realize they made it and burst into cheers and tears all at once. And the boy who carried the whole night is fast asleep on a sofa, snoring through the victory in the warm sunlight. The Nefertum terror attack shocks South Korea and the world once everyone learns S-class villain Carton led it. Public criticism hits Rokyo Academy too, but the bigger story is that almost everyone survived thanks to a student. Once Anna's name comes out, people accept the miracle immediately, and her fame explodes as the future sage. A quieter rumor says another student also saved people that night, but with no proof, that story starts to fade. 2 days later, a new video suddenly appears online and changes everything again. On Sunday morning, Headmaster Choi Jung-won privately thanks Hajun for keeping so many people alive against Carton. Hajun brushes it off and says he only fought because he did not want to die either. Even so, Hajun knows he could have escaped and chose not to, because abandoning everyone would have haunted him. Choi notices Hajun actually looks healthier now, and Hajun silently credits the brutal month he spent training inside stop time. When Choi starts sounding like he wants to place some huge burden on him, Hajun immediately pushes back and says he is no servant and not much of a hero. Choi does not argue, which only makes Hajun more uneasy, so he bluntly asks if the old man is planning to go somewhere far away. Choi laughs it off as excitement over a promising student and dismisses him, leaving Hajun wondering if that was really all. After Hajun leaves, Choi quietly admits that the boy reminds him of the old heroes and makes him feel he can pass on in peace. But he also steels himself, deciding he will handle the villains of his own era instead of leaving everything to the children. Later, Hajun takes a quiet walk through the Academy Park and finally lets himself enjoy a little peace. He settles on a bench by the fountain and decides this kind of rest is not bad at all. That peaceful break ends when Anna and Yuseola show up and immediately call him out for acting like strangers. Hajun learns they were discharged from the hospital that day after Anna spent 2 days unconscious from magical exhaustion. Yuseola is surprised he is not more shocked to see her in an academy uniform, because she has already joined the school. When Hajun jokes that she got fired, Yuseola says she quit on her own and even gave back her hero license to take responsibility. Then Yuseola leans close and whispers that she has found the safest place, making Hajun freeze because he recognizes the line from the game's original story. She notices his healthy body and is honestly stunned that he fought Carton and the puppeteer without a visible injury. Yuseola sits beside him, quietly thanks him again, and Hajun can only look away and scratch his head in embarrassment. Realizing he wants to stay hidden, Yuseola does not pry and instead gives him her contact information for any future favor he might need. Anna follows that by handing him a personal invitation to visit her in England during a break. Hajun accepts, secretly pleased by the idea of doing things in this world that he could never afford in real life. The two girls get ready to leave, joking that they are busy, and Hajun bluntly shuts down the idea of them lingering longer. But before they can go, both Anna and Yuseola get urgent calls at the exact same time. The message mentions a student in a video, and their confused faces turn serious immediately. They rush back to Hajun and shove the phone toward him, asking if he has seen this yet. Hajun starts the video, and the footage instantly reveals the blackout chaos from Nefertum. Then the phone footage catches the exact moment a boy with a golden glowing hammer smashes Carton away in the dark. Dust hides his face, but the glowing hammer gives away far too much, and Hajun's expression hardens as he realizes his secret is in danger. Back in class, Kim Hajun can barely look at the news because every article and video is obsessing over the mystery student who fought Carton and supposedly even beat Armstrong. The rumors spread fast enough that Hajun's classmates are openly staring, arguing over the leaked footage, and comparing the hammer in the video to his weapon. Lihan walks in and kills the noise instantly with one cold warning that anyone who talks will lose points. Before class starts, Lihan brings in 2 new students for the express class, Yusiola and Li Jua. Yusiola introduces herself with a poised smile, and the room goes quiet like a celebrity just walked in. Even after giving up her hero license, Yusiola is still famous enough that the class can't stop whispering about her healing power and reputation. Yusiola's smile lands directly on Hajun, reminding him they already met yesterday, but she is not the one who truly surprises him. Hajun is much more thrown by Li Jua, because she was never part of the original story he knows. Li Jua calmly says she passed the promotion test, and that only makes the other students more confused because she came from the support side, not the combat elite. Lihan backs her up without hesitation, warning the class not to underestimate her, and that endorsement instantly changes the mood. Hajun finally connects the dots and realizes Li Jua probably took his advice, contracted the divine beast Fafnir, and changed her path because of him. Once the introductions end, Lihan moves on to the next crisis for the first years. The interrupted hotel support training is being replaced by a new survival combat evaluation. A student asks how the simulation will work, but Lihan refuses to explain the details early, which only makes everyone more uneasy. Hajun already knows this island test from the game, and that is almost worse, because he knows it means 3 miserable days of combat and survival in the wild. For a second, Hajun even considers giving up entirely now that the old system pressure is gone. That fantasy dies the moment Lihan grimly promises to personally train anyone who brings back disappointing results. Training day arrives before sunrise, and all 700 first-year combat students gather on winged buses bound for the Academy's artificial island in the East Sea. After arrival, Lihan orders the express class into lines for inspection, and the students realize they were sent here with almost no preparation. Lihan stops in front of Hajun because he is the one odd student carrying a bulky bag on his back. Hajun shamelessly claims the bag only holds his favorite sleeping bag because he cannot sleep well without it, and Lihan looks painfully unimpressed. Lihan searches the bag and lets it pass, never realizing Hajun has already hidden extra food and supplies on the island for the 3-day exam. With inspections done, Lihan finally explains the rules. Each student must survive 3 days, hunt their assigned monster, and prove the kill with a bell point device. He adds the real twist for the express class. Monsters are not the only threat, because every elite student also has to seize another student's bell point while staying alert for hunters from the lower classes. Lihan even baits them by saying they can earn extra points if they manage to seize an instructor's item hidden on the island. At 7 in the morning, the signal sounds and hundreds of enhanced students explode across the island at once, shaking the ground as they sprint into the test. While everyone else dashes for points, Hajun casually walks into the forest because he has already decided his first move. He checks his belt point map and heads straight for the streamside cave where he stashed supplies the moment they arrived. Hajun uses time stop to slip through the mountain forest unseen, trading speed for secrecy as he pushes toward his private camp. The cave turns out exactly as he hoped, with water nearby and enough cover to become his hidden home base for all 3 days. Only 1 minute into the exam, a kill record suddenly appears in the monitoring room, and the staff can hardly believe any student already finished their monster. Jang Hyunjun sees Kim Hajun's name on the record and, absurd as it is, treats the result like exactly the kind of thing Hajun would do. When the junior instructor wonders if Hajun broke the rules, Jang Hyunjun just tells her to stop trying to explain him and accept that the boy is ridiculous. The replay only makes it stranger, because the drone catches Hajun facing a rock bear and then, 1 second later, the boy is gone and the monster's head has already exploded. The reason is almost insulting. After instantly killing his target, Hajun just settles into the cave, rolls out his sleeping bag, props up his phone, and starts snacking through a movie. Since the drones never enter the cave, Hajun safely abuses time stop to sleep in peace while the rest of the island keeps fighting outside. 5 hours later, the noon update for designated targets appears on his belt point, and Hajun finally sees fresh quest windows too. The new subquests are oddly mundane for him: defeat more monsters and even cook meals from them for extra experience. That reminder also makes Hajun remember the older job change quest he has been ignoring, the one tied to Maharas and a title called Crusher. He still does not know what kind of class Crusher even is, but he also knows Pyroton can make Maharas unbearable if he keeps dodging the trial. So Hajun gives in and asks Pyroton if he can take the trial now, deciding this hidden island camp is as good a place as any to finish it. Pyroton appears in her calm white dress spirit form, smiles at his decision, and warns him the trial will not be easy. Elsewhere on the island, Yahello notices Liam has been aggressively hunting every monster in sight and starts wondering why he insisted on teaming up with her at all. When they spot a red-eyed rabbit monster the size of a wolf, Yahello stops Liam and takes the kill for herself. She kills it in one clean thrust, proving that even without her old hero title, her combat skill is still very real. That only deepens Yahello's suspicion, because Liam clearly does not need healing against monsters this week. So she casually asks whose belt point he actually plans to steal, and Liam answers by steering the conversation toward Kim Hajun instead. Liam quietly asks how strong Hajun really is, and the question is suspicious enough that Yahello immediately senses what he is about to show her. He flips his belt point toward her, revealing that Kim Hajun is his assigned target, which is why he wanted a healer beside him. Liam bluntly asks her to heal whichever of them gets hurt, then declares he is going all out against Hajun. Hajun spends hours roaming the training island and killing magical beasts, but Piraten coldly rejects every single one as too weak for his job change trial. Even after around 80 kills, Piraten gives up on finding a worthy beast here, and Hajun can only grumble that she should have said that much sooner. Since the trial is going nowhere, Hajun tells Piraten to speak up if she ever spots a beast worth his time and settles for heading back. A subquest clears instead, and the system showers Hajun with extra experience for going past the target, pushing him up to level 4. Looking at the generous rewards, Hajun realizes the damage system may be bribing him forward now that it can no longer bully him with the main quest. His status window confirms level 4, and Hajun immediately focuses on the next prize waiting at level 5, a purchasable skill called Unfix. He checks the next subquest and sees a neat little shortcut to level 5, cook the magical beast he already killed for exactly the experience he still needs. The quest feels weird, but Hajun decides the system usually has a reason, so he drags himself into one more job instead of collapsing for a nap. Elsewhere on the island, Haruna stands in an icy stream trying to catch a fish because she already burned through all her emergency food. She finally snatches a huge fish, only for the slippery thing to smack her in the face and escape back into the water. Hungry and defeated, Haruna suddenly catches the smell of grilled meat and follows it upstream like it is the answer to her prayers. That smell leads her straight to Hajun, who is calmly grilling giant beast legs over a bonfire while humming to himself. Hajun notices Haruna has silently planted herself by the fire, staring so hard at the meat that she practically follows it with her whole body. When Hajun asks if she is hungry, Haruna nods with sparkling eyes, and he decides to turn the meal into business. He demands belt points in exchange, half expecting resistance, but Haruna hands them over instantly because the meat matters more. As the beast meat roasts, even Hajun gets drawn in by the rich buttery smell, surprised that salt and pepper alone could make it smell this good. The moment Hajun cuts into the roasted meat and the juices spill out, the cooking quest clears and he finally hits level 5. Hajun splits the meat, takes a bite, and admits it is genuinely good before leaving the rest to Haruna. After a quick parting word, Hajun uses time stop and heads straight back to his cave to finally rest. Meanwhile, Liam and Yahello track their belt point target to a cave and walk into a bizarrely comfortable little hideout. One look at the sleeping bag setup tells them this has to be Hajun's place, and that only makes the leaked video rumor feel more real. When Hajun returns to the cave, Yahello instantly tenses up and Liam grows even more certain the boy from the leaked video is standing right in front of them. Liam steps forward, points his spear at Hajun, and bluntly asks for a one-on-one fight. Hajun, too exhausted to care, shrinks Maharaj, pockets it, and tries to end this by offering Liam his belt points instead of a duel. Liam refuses the easy points and keeps pushing for a fair fight, while Hajun keeps begging him to just take the device and leave. Giving up on words, Hajun stands there wide open and tells Liam to start and finish it quickly. Liam finally commits, flooding the cave with magic power as he launches a full-force spear attack straight at Hajun. In the next instant Liam's vision goes dark, and no matter where he swings, Hajun's voice keeps slipping around him from the empty dark. From Hajun's side, the result is simple. Liam is frozen in an awkward attack pose, and Hajun is already thinking past the duel to the island event Liam is supposed to handle tonight. Hajun remembers that Liam is meant to stop an underground beast wave later, so sending him where he belongs sounds a lot better than letting him waste time here. Now level 5, Hajun buys Unfix on the spot and uses it on Liam, learning that the immobilization lasts 30 minutes before that target can be frozen again. Testing the skill, Hajun realizes Liam's body can still be moved, so he bonks him once, hoists him up like luggage, and confirms the trick works perfectly. Satisfied, Hajun carries the floating Liam out of the cave and heads for the underground den near the center of the island. Back in the cave, Yahello is left staring in shock because Liam, who was about to go all out, has simply vanished. When Hajun reappears, Yahello blurts out what happened, and he brushes her off with a flat answer that she does not need to know. Yahello explains that Liam wanted healing and had meant to push both of them seriously, which makes Hajun realize that spear thrust was genuinely dangerous. Too drained to care anymore, Hajun drops onto his sleeping bag, tells Yahello Liam will come back on his own, and orders her to guard him while he sleeps. He falls asleep almost instantly, leaving Yusiola staring at him in disbelief before she reluctantly decides to keep watch beside her strange benefactor. As soon as Hajun is asleep, a new system warning appears above him. The future has changed, and the episode's difficulty is increasing. Elsewhere underground, Liam comes to in a dark tunnel and realizes he has been dumped in some completely different place. Following a faint light through the tunnel, Liam finds 3 lost students in a cavern who are relieved to see him and desperate for a way out. Their talk dies immediately when the tunnel shakes, Earth starts collapsing, and giant ants begin pouring in from the dark. Within seconds the swarm grows into dozens, crawling across the ground and ceiling until Liam and the trapped students are completely surrounded. With no signal to call an instructor and the students falling into panic, Liam takes the front line and grimly admits this has become seriously dangerous. Deep in the cave, Liam keeps mowing down giant ants so brutally that the trapped students can only stare in shock. Then Liam suddenly senses something worse, and every ant in the cave recoils to make way for its king. The Ant King appears at last, a much smaller black-winged beast whose pressure is far deadlier than the bigger monsters around it. When the king casually turns its back, Liam lunges for a surprise kill instead of waiting. The king moves too fast to see, kicks Liam into the wall, and shatters the bell point barrier protecting him. Instead of finishing him, the arrogant king perches above the swarm and orders the ants to bury Liam's group in numbers. From the king's point of view, it is not anger but curiosity, because this strange wingless creature is using weapons and skills to rival stronger natural bodies. The king decides to watch and copy Liam's technique, treating the battle like a lesson instead of a threat. Back in the crush of the cave, Liam keeps carving a path through endless ants while the other students try to help him hold the line. One by one the students collapse from exhaustion, leaving Liam alone against the swarm. As his body starts to fail, Liam's vision blurs and his mind drifts back to Han Si-young, the rival he chased for years and never caught. He remembers Han Si-young standing over him after a one-sided spar, and those blunt words are what made Liam doubt whether the relic mattered more than his own talent. That old insecurity twists again when Liam remembers Kim Hajun refusing to fight him, and he starts wondering if Hajun never thought he was worth taking seriously. But once thinking stops and survival takes over, Liam suddenly slips into a sharper state where the whole world seems to slow down. Inside that slowed world, Liam starts cutting more cleanly with less wasted force, and his spear becomes frighteningly precise. Then the breakthrough explodes, and one swing tears through a whole pack of ants in a single white arc. By the time Liam comes back to himself, the swarm is gone and only the Ant King is left in front of him. Liam reaches the king's doorstep at last, but his body gives out before he can land the finishing blow. The king is thrilled instead of threatened, because Liam's fight has shown it a new path to power. As the king reaches to kill the unconscious Liam, Kim Hajun suddenly appears and blocks the strike at the last second. The furious king lunges at the weaker-looking newcomer, not realizing Hajun is the real danger in the cave. In one clean instant, Hajun cuts the king down so fast that it only realizes it is dead after its head hits the ground. After the fight, Hajun clicks his tongue and realizes the cave almost turned into a full wipe because a level 50 Ant King had no business being here. He confirms the only reason the students survived was that this was still a young antlia that got distracted by curiosity instead of killing them immediately. Hajun checks Liam, sees he is breathing, and quietly notes that surviving 7 hours in this broken scenario still pushed Liam to grow stronger. Just as Hajun gets ready to move everyone out, the Ant King's corpse burns away into black ash and leaves behind a dark purple crystal. Hajun recognizes the drop as a valuable Masui crystal and pockets it with a very satisfied grin. Then Piraten cuts into his unseen voice, and Hajun's job change quest count jumps up by 1 because she claims the Ant King as one of her trials. 2 days later, on the last day of training, Liam wakes up in Hajun's cave hideout after sleeping through his collapse. Yusiola tells him there was barely anything to treat because he simply pushed himself so hard that he slept for days. The moment Liam asks for Hajun, he gets up and heads straight for the cave entrance without waiting. What Liam finds outside is ridiculous. Hajun is roasting meat over a bonfire with Liam's treasured spear stuck through it like a skewer. Yusiola can only facepalm, because she already tried and failed to stop Hajun from turning a treasured weapon into camp cooking gear. But instead of exploding, Liam suddenly laughs and sits down across from Hajun by the fire. After hearing the other students were sent back already, Liam turns serious and asks Hajun for a real fight. Hajun gives in with a sigh, deciding it will be easier to settle Liam's stubbornness by crushing him once and for all. Yusiola tries to stop them because Liam is still recovering, but Liam has already shut everything else out and focuses only on recreating that breakthrough state. Liam slips back into that sharpened perception and drives in with a spear thrust aimed straight at Hajun's neck. Hajun ends it in a single blunt hit that sends Liam flying across the clearing and smashing into a tree. Yusiola rushes over in alarm, especially when she sees blood pouring from Liam's forehead. Then Liam sits up grinning so brightly that both Hajun and Yusiola start wondering if the impact broke something important. Instead, Liam jumps up, offers a handshake, and thanks Hajun for finally taking him seriously. Walking away with a calm smile, Liam finally lets go of the ugly question that haunted him, because he accepts that wielding a mythical relic is also his own talent. Hajun watches Liam go and decides the problem somehow got fixed, even if he is still not fully convinced he handled that cleanly. When Hajun goes back to sorting supplies, Yuseola suddenly asks what he is doing, and he silently points her to the time. The second Yuseola sees it is already noon, she realizes the training period has ended and she has missed her score because she stayed to help Liam and the others. Hajun can only offer a weak little good luck about the extra training she is about to earn, and Yuseola just stares at him in speechless disbelief. The day after survival training, Kim Hajun drags his sore, sleep-starved body back to afternoon class and just wants a chance to rest. When he sees self-study written on the board, Hajun decides this unexpected break is perfect for a desk nap. A woman's voice wakes him, and Hajun looks up groggily before freezing at the impossible person standing at the front. The story cuts to the headmaster's office, where Choi Jung-won quietly welcomes a rare visitor he never expected to see in person, Rira Harness. Choi knows Rira hates leaving her secluded dimensional hideout, so her sudden visit tells him she came for something serious. Rira opens with a sharp accusation, saying the academy is raising a monster and Choi has gone too far this time. Choi assumes she means Kim Hajun, but Rira shocks him by revealing she is actually talking about a student who contracted a divine beast, Lee Jua. After confirming the student is Lee Jua, Rira bluntly announces that she plans to make the girl her first apprentice. Choi asks her to look at the other students too, and when she says she only teaches children she truly likes, he turns the request into a bet. Choi tells Rira a first-year boy has caught his eye so strongly that he believes the child could one day become this country's symbol of peace. The wager is simple. If Rira can figure out which student he means, Choi will owe her a favor, and she accepts with interest. Back in the classroom, Rira introduces herself to the stunned first years, and Anna immediately recognizes the legendary hidden hero in front of them. The class erupts as they realize the mysterious great hero really came in person, while Hajun watches the chaos and wonders why the timeline has changed again. As Rira scans the room, she quietly singles out the rare talents among them and becomes most interested in Lee Jua, the girl who somehow contracted Fenrir when even she could not. Rira reins herself in and sends the whole class to the training ground so she can test their abilities one by one. In the large auditorium, Rira explains that this is not an exam, but she still wants everyone to fight her summons seriously so she can judge their real level. She starts the demonstration by summoning a hawk through a pale green magic circle, showing the class exactly what kind of evaluator they are dealing with. Watching the early fights with her eye-opening ability, Rira narrows the field to a handful of unusually gifted students and keeps searching for Choi's mystery boy. Liam Martell steps up first, but after studying him closely, Rira decides his relic talent is real yet still too ordinary to be the answer. Haruna Ruo catches Rira's attention next, but the moment she senses runic power from Haruna's book, she backs off because rune language is too dangerous to test casually. Even so, Rira decides Haruna is not Choi's chosen student, because her strange energy is still too faint and underdeveloped. Rira's attention shifts to Han Si-young, and this time she deliberately summons a far tougher beast to test the boy's sword. A giant rock-bodied summon called Darkness lumbers forward, built for pure endurance, and Rira waits to see whether Han Si-young can cut it at all. Han Si-young answers with one clean draw and sheath, splitting the durable beast in half so neatly that the whole room goes still. Rira instantly recognizes the Sword King's lineage in that strike and realizes Han Si-young's talent may have already surpassed his master's youth. She all but settles on Han Si-young as Choi's mystery prodigy, then gently tells the shaken class not to lose heart just because one genius went first. Then the sleepy boy from earlier, Kim Hajun, steps into the arena with his slightly worn hammer, and Rira is baffled by what she sees. After checking again with her special sight, Rira blurts out that Hajun does not even seem like a superhuman and asks how he got into the academy at all. Hajun instantly seizes the opening and, with fake wounded pride, agrees that he really is the weakest and frailest student in the class. The excuse is so shameless that the classmates can barely believe it, and Anna almost blurts out the truth before Hajun cuts her off. Rira buys the act, apologizes for misreading him, and promises to summon something weak enough for his level while kindly offering advice afterward. Now stuck with the match, Hajun debates whether to just pretend to struggle, because using his real power for this old hero's curiosity feels like a pain. Rira's idea of weak turns out to be a winged falcon, and Hajun is immediately annoyed that even her easy mode is still an intermediate summon. The winged falcon rushes him, but every hammer swing misses as the bird twists around the strikes with irritating ease. What starts as a light hit on the shoulder turns into repeated mocking flybys as the bird slaps Hajun from behind and keeps dodging his timing. When Hajun nearly catches it and still gets clipped in the back of the head, the falcon's screech sounds so smug that even Pyrotin bluntly tells him he is being looked down on. That finally snaps his patience, and Hajun goes still for one quiet beat as the bird charges in again from behind. In the next instant, Hajun uses time stop and smashes the winged falcon straight into the floor so fast that nobody can follow what he did. The students stare like they saw exactly what they expected, but Rira is left blank-faced and rattled because even she did not see how Hajun moved. In the academy evaluation hall, Rira sizes Kim Hajun up with her open eyes and decides he looks like an ordinary boy with no heroic talent at all. Because she thinks Hajun is weak, Rira calls out her winged falcon and quietly orders it to pressure him without using its full power. The falcon toys with him, dodging every swing, and Rira turns away convinced this boy really does not belong among elite students. Then a heavy crash snaps her back, and the winged falcon is suddenly embedded headfirst in the floor. Rira yanks the dazed summon back up and learns, to its humiliation, that it got caught off guard by the boy she had just dismissed. Before anyone else can speak, Hajun steps up, bows politely, and thanks Rira for the test like nothing strange just happened. Rira admits he beat an intermediate summon and praises his effort and grit, even while bluntly saying his raw strength still is not enough for a top hero. The class is left speechless, because they know she completely misread Hajun, but no one wants to untangle that mess now. That evening in the headmaster's office, Rira starts by praising Han Si-young as a sword prodigy already close to active hero level. Choi Jung-won lightly drops a surprise on her by saying Han Si-young would only be the strongest if Kim Hajun were not there. When he names Hajun, Rira is genuinely stunned, because she saw no magic, no superhuman traits, and nothing that should have marked him as special. Choi only laughs harder, confirming that even Rira failed to see through Hajun, and she is left grudgingly admitting the boy fooled her completely. Even so, Rira decides Hajun at least has serious guts, and Choi nudges her to look closer because the boy has more than that. Later that night in his dorm room, Hajun lies on his bed already expecting the system to punish him for changing the story too much. The warning appears exactly as he feared. Because Rira entered the flow early, the Dimensional Dungeon episode will now happen much sooner. Hajun grimly recognizes the Dimensional Dungeon as one of Han Si-young's biggest first-year crises. Then he realizes this quest was originally just a game stage for Han Si-young, so maybe he does not need to interfere at all if the difficulty itself has not changed. He decides to leave it alone for now, stretch out, and finally try to sleep instead of spiraling over a problem that has not started yet. Just then, his phone lights up with an unexpected late-night message from Lee Jua asking if he is awake. Her nerves show through the texting, but when Lee Jua asks to treat him to lunch tomorrow, Hajun casually agrees. A little earlier that evening, Lee Jua had nervously entered the academy reception room after Rira called her in. Rira puts her at ease, sits her down, and tells her outright that she knows Lee Jua contracted a divine beast named Fenrir. Because she also made a divine beast contract herself, Rira warns that Fenrir's power will only get harder to control and offers Lee Jua a way forward. Then Rira asks the stunned girl to become her apprentice. Lee Jua can barely believe it, and asks for time to talk it over with someone who first pointed her toward becoming a summoner. When that someone turns out to be Kim Hajun, Rira is hit with a second wave of surprise and starts seeing him as even stranger than before. After Lee Jua leaves, Rira quietly admits she is getting drawn in by Hajun and suspects her stay at the academy may last longer because of him. The next day, Hajun meets Lee Jua at a barbecue restaurant outside the academy, and while he happily grills Korean beef for lunch, she sits there too distracted to touch the food. Once he tells her to speak freely, Lee Jua brings up Rira's offer, and Hajun immediately guesses she was asked to become an apprentice. Hajun tells her she absolutely should accept, because this is not bad luck at all but the best help she could get for her growth. He explains that the so-called short lifespan of new divine beast contractors is mostly because they fail to endure and train under that overwhelming power. Then he warns her not to mistake a divine beast for an obedient summon, because those beings do not naturally see their contractors as equals. His biggest warning is blunt: if she lacks confidence, Fenrir will eventually swallow her whole. So Hajun tells her the relationship must be set from the start, and she should never treat Fenrir like a helper, colleague, or friend. When Lee Jua timidly suggests empathy, a new voice cuts in and exposes how naive that answer is. Rira appears at the restaurant, joins them uninvited, and calmly backs Hajun up by saying divine beasts are closer to devils than friends if you lower your guard. Rira explains that most divine beasts only want magical power and treat their contractors like tools, so the summoner has to tighten the reins from the beginning. She adds that Fenrir is one of the strongest and nastiest of them all, which makes Lee Jua's contract even more dangerous than normal. Rira then turns on Hajun, praising him for seeing Lee Jua's talent but scolding him for throwing her into this without proper guidance. Suspicious now, Rira suddenly leans in and starts feeling Hajun's body for herself, trying to verify what he really is. After checking, Rira bluntly concludes Hajun is not truly awakened and is physically one of the weakest in class, which only makes his results more baffling. Hajun dodges the real answer with a deadpan line about having a little wisdom, which only makes Rira more curious. Rira decides that if he helped awaken Lee Jua's talent, then he should come along too when she starts training the girl. Hajun cautiously agrees to just follow and watch, and Rira accepts that before telling them to finish eating first. Then Rira cheerfully orders 3 more servings of expensive sirloin, leaving Hajun staring in silence at the growing bill. Elsewhere in the Heroes Association president's office, Kim Jong-young finishes a warm phone call with his family before dropping back into work with a tired sigh. His secretary Choi Mari brings him back to the latest troubles, and he admits recent incidents have already ruined plans to spend time with his son and granddaughter. One of those worries is cartons still being loose in Korea, and another is a strange concentration of magic power near Dongdaemun Station that no one can explain. Even though staff are already on site and nothing obvious has appeared yet, Kim Jong-young cannot shake the bad feeling building in his chest. He walks to the big window overlooking the city and quietly admits that something about this situation feels deeply wrong. In the academy's demonic forest, Rira seals a wide flat clearing inside a pale green barrier because she expects the summon to be dangerous enough to wreck the whole area. Rira turns to Li Jua and tells her to show the power Fenrir gave her, making it clear this lesson is really about controlling that divine beast. Li Jua releases Fenrir's white spiritual energy around her body, and the sacred-looking aura immediately changes the mood of the clearing. Rira warns that even this power is less than half of Fenrir's true strength, and bluntly says a full manifestation would probably try to eat Li Jua. To calm her down, Rira pats Li Jua's head and tells her to summon only Fenrir's head first while she teaches her the method. As Li Jua concentrates, her spiritual energy gathers into a huge circular passage, and a single giant rainbow eye opens inside it. The passage opens wide enough for Fenrir's gigantic white wolf head to push through, and Rira casually remarks that this terrifying divine beast is still only a cub. Fenrir growls and floods the barrier with crushing magical pressure, but Hajun just stares back so calmly that Rira starts wondering if he can even feel it. When Hajun flatly asks if they are going to start, Rira refocuses and explains the real lesson. Li Jua has to stand before Fenrir as an equal, not as someone beneath him. Li Jua bravely steps in front of Fenrir, but the divine beast instantly tries to bite her, and she falls back in panic. Rira tells her the problem plainly. Fenrir made a contract with her, but he never accepted her as his master. To show her what true dominance looks like, Rira walks straight up to Fenrir herself. Fenrir unleashes an even fiercer howl and pressure at Rira, but she reaches his forehead anyway and silences him with a simple hand and a quiet command. Just as Rira proves her point, the passage starts widening on its own, and she realizes Fenrir is forcing more of himself through by using his master's magic without permission. A surge of pure white mist bursts out of the passage and swallows the barrier, cutting off everyone's view in a sudden, dangerous mess. Inside the mist, Fenrir spots Hajun as prey and charges him, sure the weakest-looking human will be the easiest to kill. Hajun answers with a blunt hit from his golden hammer, slamming Fenrir's head into the ground before the beast can even reach him. Then the beating turns bizarre, because Fenrir keeps taking crushing impacts from impossible speed while Hajun still looks almost motionless between strikes. For the first time in his life, Fenrir feels real fear, because the human he dismissed as weak is hurting him without even showing power. Hajun coldly tells the divine beast that if Fenrir's master failed to educate him, then he will do it himself. When Rira reaches the sound through the clearing fog, she finds Fenrir getting pounded into the barrier corner, while Hajun stands over him with Maharaj like this is the most normal thing in the world. What truly rattles Rira is that even now she still cannot sense any clear magic or aura from Hajun, which makes his brute force feel completely unknowable. Once the mist is gone, Li Jua rushes in front of Hajun to stop him, and he dryly insists that beating a divine beast into line is the standard method. Li Jua doubts that this can possibly be normal, but Rira quietly backs Hajun up, and the proof is right there because Fenrir is terrified yet completely uninjured. Hajun says he is about to make Fenrir be reborn, and the divine beast immediately panics and scrabbles at the barrier trying to escape. Li Jua finally calls the sight too pitiful, and that tiny moment of mercy becomes Fenrir's opening. Fenrir hurriedly switches tactics, crawls up to Li Jua, and starts licking her arm like a frightened dog begging for protection. When Li Jua gently strokes his head and Fenrir accepts it meekly, even Hajun has to admit the beast figured out the safest person to cling to. Hajun gives up on the extra beating, puts Maharaj away, and leans close to warn Fenrir to obey Li Jua or face re-education next time. With Fenrir subdued, Hajun turns on Rira and bluntly accuses her of baiting the divine beast toward him on purpose. Rira openly admits she tested him, and she only shrugs that the barrier would have kept him from dying if she had guessed wrong. Hajun warns her not to drag him into this kind of stunt again, and Rira finally drops the barrier as he storms off toward the dorms. Li Jua apologizes awkwardly, but Rira says the fault was entirely hers and keeps watching Hajun leave with a strange mix of fear and fascination. Then Rira suddenly sees something behind Hajun that no human should have, and cold sweat breaks out as she realizes she cannot be sure of beating him even at full strength. That evening in the headmaster's office, Choi Jungwon cheerfully teases Rira until she finally admits that Hajun really is a monster. When Choi asks what she saw, Rira says Hajun first felt like total nothingness, which is exactly why he was so hard to read. But Rira says the emptiness was not truly empty, because behind Hajun she saw a vast dark universe filled with countless stars. At the center of that vision she also saw part of a gigantic hour hand, so huge she could not even make out the whole thing. That sight convinces Rira that Hajun is already at least great hero level or has the potential to reach it, and the growing stars mean he is still getting stronger. Rira warns Choi that Hajun is not some student he can simply manage, because even she could not perceive how his power worked while he overwhelmed Fenrir. Choi answers like a teacher, saying Hajun is still young and still has shortcomings, so his job is to educate him no matter how monstrous he is. Then Choi quietly reveals something even stranger. As his own magic fades, he feels closer to the truth and has seen his own final future. He says his last moment may be spent teaching Hajun, leaving Rira stunned by how seriously he has committed himself to that boy. Later in his room, Hajun wakes from an evening nap and sees a notice counting down to a dimensional dungeon appearing around noon tomorrow. The reminder sours his mood, because he knows this is a major first-year dungeon event that will cause heavy casualties if no one interferes. Hajun wrestles with the risk of changing the story again, but in the end he leans towards stepping in to save the people who can still be saved and leaving the dungeon itself to Han Si-young. On Sunday morning, Kim Hajun heads into Seoul early because he knows a dimensional dungeon is about to appear in the city center. He scans the crowded streets with a grim thought: once the gate forms, anyone too close will be swallowed before he can react. Knowing he cannot save the people caught at the exact center, Hajun settles into a nearby cafe to wait for the right moment to save everyone else. With 20 minutes left, an unexpected visitor walks in and heads straight for his table, Rira Harness. Rira casually admits she followed him because she was worried about yesterday, and Hajun flatly calls that stalking. While Hajun stares out the window, Rira quietly remembers Choi Jung-won trusting this boy to protect his final moments. Rira cannot accept that idea, because the more she understands Hajun, the more she feels he has power but none of a hero's sense of duty. When Rira brings up the lives he has saved, Hajun answers without hesitation that he only acts because he does not want to die. He goes further, and says he saves others only when he can do it without putting his own life on the line, which confirms Rira's fear that he will never willingly become a symbol people can lean on. Rira abruptly rises to leave, but Hajun stops her with a quiet warning that she should go later. Rira follows his gaze to the street just as the dungeon countdown hits its final second. The instant the timer reaches 0, the whole city center lurches under a violent quake. A dark purple mass erupts into existence, and instantly forms a giant gate, swallowing the unlucky people closest to it. The dungeon's backlash slams through the area next, shattering windows, wrecking cars, and throwing the whole district into panic. Then the noise cuts out so suddenly that Rira realizes something is deeply wrong. She looks around and finds the cafe completely empty except for herself. Hajun is still there, now looking tired instead of casual, and he coolly asks if she can handle the rest. Before Rira can press him, Hajun leaves her with a few vague words and vanishes from sight. Rira steps outside and finds a wrecked city block with cracked buildings and smashed cars, but not a single person left in sight. Soon after, senior hero Kim Sung-hwan arrives at the dungeon site and studies the gate with a veteran's grim focus. The association tells him an unknown transfer phenomenon saved almost everyone outside the gate, which means some hidden person reduced the casualties at the last second. Relieved that so many lives were spared, Wingman decides to enter first and use his buoyancy power to carry survivors back out fast. But when he reaches the gate and strikes it, an unseen barrier stops him cold. That failed strike tells him the truth at once. This is a conditional dungeon that cannot even be entered freely from the outside. 2 hours later, Hajun wakes up, checks the news on his phone, and confirms the incident is still mostly following the game timeline. He is quietly relieved that saving bystanders did not trigger any system punishment, which makes him suspect the broken system is no longer sensitive to small changes. With nothing else to do for now, Hajun decides he can simply wait for the dimensional dungeon episode to play out. The association quickly discovers the dungeon's brutal rule: only boys and girls under 19 can enter. That result turns the rescue plan ugly, because no normal teenagers should be sent into a dungeon this deadly, yet a dungeon break could happen within 12 hours if nobody goes. The room splits between sealing the dungeon and abandoning the trapped citizens or trusting gifted young heroes to attempt a rescue anyway. When the vote locks at 4-4, Association Chief Kim Jong-young breaks the silence and reveals that his own son and granddaughter are trapped inside the dungeon. His hand trembles hard enough to bleed as he admits he can no longer pretend to be fully rational in this decision. Even so, he casts the deciding vote in favor of the rescue and says he will resign if that choice fails, because he made it as a father and grandfather, not just the association head. That evening, Choi Jung-won summons Hajun and tells him the association is asking students for help because of the dungeon's entry condition. Choi admits he opposed sending children into a dimensional dungeon, but the academy's strongest students insisted on going anyway. He also tells Hajun the association contacted him too, but Hajun immediately says he is not going. Choi accepts that answer with a small, bittersweet smile, because unlike the others he will not force Hajun into a death trap. Back in his dorm, Hajun checks the furious public reaction online and notes that events are still moving the way they should. He tries to sleep early, but a knock at the door brings Han Si-young to his room. Han Si-young says he has something to discuss, and Hajun shuts him down on sight because he already knows this is about the dungeon. When Hajun tries to close the door, Han Si-young stops it with brute strength and presses him to at least listen. Hajun refuses again, arguing that Han Si-young is strong enough to go without him and that he needs no excuse to stay out. Han Si-young can only leave with a disappointed look, and that quiet acceptance somehow irritates Hajun even more. Hajun lies back down uneasy, but before sleep can finally take him, another knock interrupts the night. This time it is Student Council President Lee Joo-hee, who politely asks to speak with him. Hajun lets her in, already bracing for the same request he refused before. Instead, Lee Juhee calmly says the association contacted her, and that she has already decided to enter the dimensional dungeon. Her actual request is much smaller and heavier. If something happens to her, she wants Hajun to look after her younger sister Lee Jua. She explains that asking him to risk himself again would be shameless after everything he has already done to save others. Those simple words hit Hajun strangely hard, because they sound like someone finally noticing how much he has carried. Lee Juhee leaves after repeating her request to protect Jua, and Hajun is left sitting there with the door closed, and his thoughts stirred up. Her kindness pulls up an old memory of the brother who used to stay by his side at the orphanage, and the feeling lingers longer than Hajun wants. He tries to sleep again, but the more he lies there, the more obvious it becomes that he is still wide awake. At 11 that night, Hajun finally gives up on sleep, gets dressed, and heads out toward the dimensional dungeon site. Late at night in the headmaster's office, Choi Jung-won quietly laments that adults are failing the children they should be protecting. Rira brings up Kim Ha-jun's absence and asks bluntly if Choi Jung-won still believes that boy will one day replace him. Rira says no, because Ha-jun has the power to save people but not the temperament to carry everyone's hopes like a savior. She presses harder, saying Ha-jun hides his power because he wants a normal life and only acts when trouble reaches him directly. Instead of arguing, Choi Jung-won just smiles, which instantly makes Rira suspicious. Choi Jung-won proposes another bet, this time on whether Ha-jun will move at all. When Rira asks if he somehow knows the future, Choi Jung-won says he is only testing his fate. He leans in and whispers the stakes, and whatever he says makes Rira snap and curse him as a snake. At midnight, Ha-jun uses time stop and slips to the dimensional dungeon site to watch the rescue team go in from the shadows. He thinks about calling Liam or Anna, but gives up because America and Britain's royal side would never let those two step into this mess. Haruna is unreachable too, so Ha-jun settles for trusting the Korean heroes already gathered there. His eyes land on Yuseola, and she looks strangely gloomy as she types on her phone before the mission. A text from Seola pops up on Ha-jun's phone, and she admits she only signed up because she thought he would be there. Ha-jun tells her he is not going, but he still gives her the safest advice he can, stay glued to Han Si-young. Seola still asks him to come if things get dangerous, and Ha-jun dodges with a loose promise that he will think about it. About 10 minutes later, the rescue team finally marches into the dungeon under cheers, prayers, and a storm of camera flashes. Watching that send-off, Ha-jun decides his part is over for now and leaves with time stop. Back in his dorm, he drops onto his bed and goes to sleep convinced the future is still on track. The next morning, Ha-jun wakes up refreshed and reaches for his phone expecting good news. But the article he expected is missing, and that empty screen gives him a bad feeling immediately. He throws on clothes, triggers time stop again, and rushes straight back to the dungeon site. What he finds is a disaster scene, with grieving families crying behind the police line because no one came back out. Near the gate, Chairman Kim Jong-yong is kneeling in shock, calling the names of his son and granddaughter like he has already lost them. Then Ha-jun sees the worst part. The dimensional dungeon entrance has been shut behind a giant metal plate. Before he can process it, Lee Juao breaks through the line and collapses sobbing for her sister in front of the sealed gate. Ha-jun checks the news on his phone and learns the first rescue team failed, so the chairman sealed the dungeon to stop a dungeon break. He quickly realizes that if he goes in now, the labyrinth could trap him for months, and that was exactly what he wanted to avoid. Even worse, he cannot simply smash through the sealed gate, because it was built with anti-break devices for exactly this situation. He is still grinding through the problem when a sub-quest suddenly appears, ordering him to conquer the dimensional dungeon. That shove from the system snaps the last of Ha-jun's patience, and his face twists with open fury. He yanks his hood down, pulls out Maharazu, and strides straight across the police line toward the sealed gate. The agents rush to stop him, then freeze when they recognize the golden hammer from the old footage. In a heartbeat, the crowd realizes the irregular from the video is standing right there in front of them. Ha-jun walks right up to Chairman Kim Jong-yong and calmly tells him to open the gate. The chairman's dead eyes spark back to life at the sight of the hammer, but Ha-jun only adds a warning, "Open it before I break it." Inside the dungeon, the trapped rescue team realizes they saved the civilians, but the labyrinth still will not let them find the exit. Their path markers have vanished, 7 hours of fighting have worn everyone down, and only the students still have enough strength to keep the monsters back. When another swarm closes in, Han Si-young dashes ahead alone and cuts down about 20 monsters in one clean burst. The battered rescue team can only stare in relief as Si-young and Lee Ju-hee quietly carry most of the fight for everyone else. Knowing nobody can guess how much longer this maze will hold them, Si-young and Ju-hee agree to keep alternating so they do not burn out too soon. Then the ground starts shaking, and the whole team knows something much bigger than the usual monsters is coming. A minotaur steps out of the maze, bull-headed and towering, dragging a torn monster carcass in one hand and an enormous axe in the other. The sight alone terrifies the group, because an intermediate beast like this should never appear in a low-ranked dungeon. As the minotaur advances, Lee Ju-hee jumps in first and cuts its arm just enough to drag its attention off the others. She orders the others to take everyone and run, refusing help because protecting the civilians matters more than backing her up. Han Si-young trusts Ju-hee's judgment, turns away from the fight, and helps lead the trapped people out. Left alone, Lee Ji-hee finally unleashes Absolute Zero, dropping the temperature around her into a killing field of ice. The Minotaur slows, stiffens, and breaks apart under the cold until it dies frozen in place. But the moment Ju-hee confirms the kill, the ground shakes again, even heavier than before. She turns and sees the real nightmare: 5 more Minotaurs breaking through the labyrinth wall. Inside the labyrinth, Lee Ju-hee keeps cutting down wave after wave of Minotaurs, freezing them mid-charge before they can fully crawl out of the walls. She keeps the slaughter going, but the endless ambush finally starts draining her strength. Then a heavy blow catches her off guard and hurls her into the wall hard enough to make her cough blood. When she looks up, even more Minotaurs are rising from the ground and walls, and this time her body is already failing her. Ju-hee realizes too late that she underestimated the enemy's trick, and now her left leg and right arm barely respond. As the footsteps shake the maze, she fights to stay conscious and suddenly thinks of the little sister she never had the courage to face before coming here. Even with death closing in, Ju-hee decides she will spend the last of her strength protecting the rescue team from these monsters. Right before the Minotaurs reach her, they suddenly scream and start smashing into the maze walls as if struck by an invisible force. Out of the dust, Kim Ha-jun walks calmly toward her, looking like someone who absolutely should not be inside this dungeon. Ju-hee can only ask why he is here before her strength gives out, and with a pained apology she collapses into Ha-jun's arms. Elsewhere in the maze, Han Si-young's group gets cornered at a dead end as Minotaurs close in on the rescuers and the civilians they are protecting. Han Si-young slices off a Minotaur's hand, then instantly realizes the walls themselves are part of the threat, and warns everyone to stay back. The team reforms around the civilians, but the situation stays grim with monsters pressing in from every direction. Then the whole ring of Minotaurs starts collapsing for no clear reason, their ankles snapping and their bodies slamming sideways into the floor. Through the clearing dust, the survivors finally spot a hooded boy with a hammer walking toward them with unconscious Lee Ju-hee on his back. Yu Seola recognizes Ha-jun immediately, even with his face hidden, and her fear finally breaks into relief. Ha-jun lays Ju-hee down and gives Seola a simple order: treat her. Seola rushes to heal Ju-hee, and by the time she looks up again, Ha-jun has already vanished back into the maze. Under time stop, Ha-jun keeps roaming the frozen labyrinth and starts wondering what is actually different enough to trap the rescue team here. The maze, the Minotaurs, even the overall setup all match the game closely enough that Ha-jun starts suspecting the boss monster is the real problem. He notices the maze is shifting far more aggressively than it should, but time stop lets him ignore the movement and keeps searching at his own pace. So Ha-jun turns the impossible search into a long frozen trek, leaving marks, sleeping on the floor when tired, and smashing Minotaur legs so they cannot rush anyone later. After what feels like 3 months inside stop time, he finally finds the massive stone gate leading to the boss room. He unlocks the gate and steps into a round chamber where the dungeon boss sits meditating in the center. At first Ha-jun is baffled because the boss looks almost exactly like Bardal from the game. The moment Ha-jun releases time stop, Bardal panics, realizes he is alone, and immediately tries to kill him with spikes bursting from the ground. Ha-jun dodges with time stop and closes the distance, still trying to understand what feels wrong about this boss. Then Ha-jun catches the difference. This Bardal is younger, missing the beard from the game, and acts like a brat instead of a composed boss. That realization snaps something in Ha-jun, and he slams Bardal's head into the floor with Maharazu in pure anger. Ha-jun realizes the dungeon did not get harder at all, it just opened too early, leaving a weaker but nastier immature Bardal to torment everyone with pointless pranks. Furious that this childish monster wasted 3 months of his stop time, Ha-jun sends Bardal flying into the wall with another brutal hit. Bardal tries one more spike attack, but Ha-jun vanishes again and appears right in front of him with a promise to force him to grow up fast. What follows is a savage one-sided beating as invisible punches hammer Bardal over and over while stop time stretches the pain. Ha-jun even mocks him mid-beating by saying only 30 seconds have passed before starting the punishment again. Bardal finally understands the rhythm of the hits and the ugly truth behind them. Ha-jun is enjoying teaching him this lesson. When Ha-jun raises the finishing blow, Bardal slips underground at the last second and shakes the whole chamber apart. Bardal reemerges inside a giant body of earth and tries to turn the room itself into a weapon. It does not help because Ha-jun tears through that trick too and appears at Bardal's face again, now close enough for the boss to finally feel real fear. By the time Ha-jun is done with Maharazu, Bardal is nothing but a broken body sinking into the ground. The quest finally clears, Bardal crumbles to dust, and the dungeon itself starts melting away around Ha-jun. As the dungeon disappears, the survivors suddenly find themselves back under open sky with reporters, agents, and waiting families staring in shock. The crowd erupts when they realize the rescue team is alive, and the police lines stop mattering the moment the dungeon threat is gone. Association President Kim Jong-yong can barely believe it because Ha-jun cleared the dungeon only 10 minutes after entering. The shock overwhelms him so completely that his legs give out right there. Then his family calls out to him, and the old man breaks down completely when he sees they are safe. While holding his son and granddaughter, Kim Jong-yong looks for the boy who saved everyone, but Ha-jun is already gone. All he can do is thank the unknown boy who chose to save the citizens even after sealing the dungeon meant abandoning the rescue team. Later in the ambulance, Lee Juhee wakes to blue sky, Seola's healing, and her little sister crying beside her. The moment Juhee sees Jua safe in front of her, she understands she survived and that Hajun saved them all. With a weak smile, Juhee finally apologizes to her sister and gently strokes her head while Jua keeps trembling and crying. The whole world erupts over the dimensional dungeon, and every headline starts worshipping the mysterious irregular who cleared it. Back in his dorm, Kim Hajun washes his face, reads the coverage, and instantly regrets charging into the spotlight. Since the mess is already spreading, Hajun decides his only hope is to ask Principal Choi Young-won for help. When Hajun enters the office, Choi Young-won is already waiting with tea and snacks like he expected this visit. Hajun gets straight to the point and asks if they can stop the story, but Choi tells him it is already too late. The one small mercy is that the papers did not catch Hajun's face clearly, even if witness sketches are getting dangerously close. Choi also reveals that the association chairman wanted to meet him, and Hajun is relieved to hear that request was already refused. With no miracle memory wipe available, Hajun has to accept that this trouble is not going away. As Hajun gets ready to leave, Choi suddenly asks the question that matters most: why did he step in and save those kids? Hajun answers honestly that he acted because he thought the students were going to die. Choi smiles with quiet satisfaction and tells him that, hero title or not, he acted more heroically than anyone. Hajun bows out without answering, and Choi sends him off with 2 days of academy break to recover. Once Hajun is gone, Choi smugly announces that he has won the bet again. Color ripples through the empty space, and Water Sage Riella Harness materializes to admit Choi was right about Hajun. Riella drops into Hajun's old seat and flatly refuses to revisit their wager, already regretting ever coming here. The real stake comes out when Choi wants Riella to become the next principal, but she pushes back because she chose dimensional space to avoid exactly that kind of burden. Choi lowers his voice and tells Riella that is exactly why he does not want her to stay alone. Back in his dorm, Hajun checks his phone and finds missed calls and messages piling up after the incident. The messages range from Anna, Uciela, Lee Jua, and even Liam, all reacting to what he did. One text worries him more than the rest. Lee Juhee says she is already on her way to his room even though she should still be in the hospital. Hajun tells Juhee to rest, and Uciela immediately confirms the problem by warning that Juhee ran out of the hospital before fully healing. He forwards Ciela's warning to Juhee and bluntly says he will not open the door if she shows up like this. That finally works, and Juhee reluctantly says she will come back later, which means she is heading back to the hospital. Exhausted at last, Hajun collapses onto the bed and stares at the ceiling, thinking about how many years he still has left at the academy. The thought gets worse when he remembers time stop could drag his ordeal out even longer, making this kind of trouble feel like a 5 or 6 year sentence. Then he shifts from dread to practicality and focuses on the golden hammer that has become far too famous to carry around openly. He decides he needs money for a concealment artifact, and dungeon loot is the only realistic option available to him right now. That sparks a better idea, and Hajun suddenly remembers the magic stone he got from the survival training battle. With the magic stone in hand, he starts imagining an artifact purchase and a proper meal for the first time in ages. He searches for nearby artifact shops, picks the closest one, and decides to head out right away. At the academy gate, Hajun stops short when he sees reporters swarming the entrance, still hunting the mystery hero. He slips past the noise and reaches a polished armory near the academy that looks popular with students. Inside, Hajun immediately asks the woman at the counter to appraise his magic stone. While she checks it in back, Hajun wanders the strangely quiet shop and waits. When the owner comes back, her nervous sweat gives away that something is already wrong. She starts asking where he got the stone and whether he is really an academy student, which instantly puts Hajun on edge. Before he can sort it out, 2 heroes walk in and quietly start circling him like a suspect. The heroes explain that a stone this good should come from a beast on a much bigger scale, so they need to investigate him for possible theft. Hajun realizes the owner must have reported him the moment she saw the stone, and the whole ridiculous situation finally clicks into place. Then association management agents arrive too, and the shop is already treating him like a confirmed criminal. For a second Hajun considers freezing time and escaping the nonsense, but he decides that would only make things worse. The mood flips when one agent recognizes him by name, and suddenly asks him to wait with unexpected respect. An even bigger shock follows when Chairman Kim Jong-yong himself walks into the armory. The chairman spots Hajun at once, grabs his hand with trembling emotion, and confirms that he is the one from the dungeon. The chairman asks for a private room, and everyone left downstairs is stunned that the top man in the association is treating a student this way. Upstairs, the chairman apologizes for barging in and starts speaking with raw gratitude instead of authority. The owner brings in tea, sees the chairman treating Hajun like an honored guest, and suddenly looks terrified of how badly she misread him. When Hajun asks how he was found, the chairman casually admits he checked the academy roster after recognizing his face. The chairman thanks him for saving his son, granddaughter, and the trapped citizens, then admits he wanted to resign but still cannot while the carton threat remains. Instead of hiding, Hajun decides to use this connection and asks the chairman for help getting an artifact. Hajun sets the golden hammer Maharazu on the table and explains that what he really needs is something to hide it. The chairman eagerly offers the entire shop's stock and tells Hajun to choose anything he wants at the association's expense. Then the chairman awkwardly adds one more request of his own. His granddaughter is a fan, so he wants Hajun's autograph. A little later, Hajun leaves the armory with a boxed rare artifact, even though the chairman thought he should have chosen something much better. Hajun sticks with the rare item because the better artifact he liked would have caused recoil he could not safely handle. The chairman even offers to drive him back to the academy, but Hajun refuses because arriving in that car would draw far too much attention. Before leaving, the chairman gives Hajun his business card and promises help whenever he needs it. After the chairman drives off, Hajun notices the shop owner still bowing in apology, but he decides the misunderstanding was just bad timing rather than malice. He still has the magic stone problem to solve, but after a day this absurd, Hajun gives up on selling it here and just heads back to rest. After the dimensional dungeon broadcast throws the academy into chaos, Kim Hajun heads to class and feels a bad chill before he even opens the door. The moment Hajun steps in, the whole class turns to stare, and he finally remembers that everyone has seen the irregular's hammer on the news. Hajun sits down and plays dumb, hoping the easiest way out is to deny everything. Cheon Inhan walks over with a news article and bluntly asks if the hammer-wielding irregular is Hajun. Hajun calmly lies that he stayed in his room all day, and his hidden time-stop trip home gives that lie a perfect alibi. When other students back up his alibi and insist they saw him around the dorms, the room starts doubting the obvious answer. Hajun seals it with a casual "not me," just as instructor Han Isul walks in and shuts the whole classroom down. Han Isul announces that despite all the outside noise, the schedule stays the same and the special class will begin sidekick experience learning tomorrow. He explains that hero offices will choose students based on their recent rankings, and the class immediately lights up at the thought of working beside top heroes. Hajun knows his rank fell to 5th, but what really nags at him is that Haruna's sidekick assignment is where her villain the Alter first makes a move. Deciding he needs to stay close to Haruna in case anything twists, Hajun quietly starts planning around her assignment. Then Han Isul suddenly calls Hajun out of class for a private talk. In the faculty room, Han Isul shows him a monitor packed with hero nominations, and Hajun is stunned by just how many people picked him. Han Isul bluntly explains that heroes are chasing the academy's top student and the suspected hammer irregular at the same time, so Hajun needs to choose fast and free up the rest. Hajun picks Ji Nahan, not out of fandom, but because going with Korea's famous top hero is his best shot at staying attached to Haruna's route. When Han Isul hands over a personal statement form, Hajun gets stuck at the ability section because he obviously cannot write time stop. So Hajun shamelessly invents hectopascal legs, and Han Isul oddly accepts the fake name as if it sounds powerful enough to be real. At 1 in the afternoon, the special class rides out by wing bus toward their assigned hero offices for the real start of sidekick training. Only 3 students end up at Ji Nahan's guild: Hajun, Haruna Ruel, and Dan Yasul, the capable girl who had stepped into Haruna's old team leader role. Dan Yasul gushes over the guild, then shoots Hajun a suspicious look when she realizes he chose the same place. Hajun ignores the awkward energy and heads straight inside, forcing the other 2 to hurry after him. Inside, Ji Nahan herself greets them, and Dan Yasul immediately turns into a starstruck fan in front of Korea's glamorous hero idol. Ji Nahan happily signs an autograph for Dan Yasul, feeding the girl's fangirl excitement even more. But the instant Ji Nahan notices Haruna, she lights up and pulls the quiet girl into a warm hug like she'd been waiting forever to meet her. Dan Yasul joins in, proudly declaring Haruna the cutest in class, while Haruna endures the double affection with a helpless stare. Meanwhile, Hajun just watches the chaos with a tired yawn until Ji Nahan finally notices the third in turn and asks who he is. Hajun learns the truth fast. Ji Nahan personally wanted Haruna and Yasul, but his own slot was just a casual third pick made by her deputy. Ji Nahan still decides to test all 3 and leads them down by elevator to the guild's huge basement training ground. The interns draw attention the moment they arrive, especially Haruna, whose rune language fame has already reached the guild's sidekicks. A senior hero named Kim Jae-hoon steps in to handle the test and decides to skip duels in favor of a faster dummy evaluation. Dan Yasul eagerly volunteers to go first, and Jae-hoon shifts the test to focus on her speed and technique instead of raw power. She explodes forward with her dagger and carves the dummy in a blur of clean rapid slashes that even the guild heroes respect. Her score lands at 24-23, and even though that's below the usual power average, Hajun honestly tells her that number is impressive at her speed. When Hajun even gives her a polite clap, Dan Yasul somehow looks more annoyed instead of less. Haruna steps up next, quiet as ever, and simply reaches one hand toward the dummy. She speaks a word from the rune language, and an alien force crushes the dummy into a mangled wreck. The scoreboard flashes 15250, a hit strong enough to rival a mid-tier hero's full-force attack, and Haruna still looks like she barely tried. Dan Yasul proudly smothers Haruna with another affectionate hug, and Haruna accepts it with the long-suffering sigh of someone used to this by now. Then Jae-hoon reads Hajun's form and gets stuck on the absurd fake ability names and the line claiming he has no weaknesses. Hajun keeps a straight face and explains hectopascal kick as exactly what it sounds like, plus a weird warning that using it wrong can twist your back and waist. Jae-hoon still sends him to the dummy, expecting some hidden merit from a student ranked this high. Hajun jumps as if to kick, secretly freezes time, and spends what amounts to 20 minutes hammering the dummy with hidden punches no one else can see. When time resumes, the machine only shows 3,100, enough to pass easily but still far below what Haruna just did. But Ji-nahan catches a glimpse of something wrong, because to her sharp eyes Hajun seemed to vanish and reappear for a split second. She brushes off the unease for now, and with all 3 students cleared, Ji-nahan takes them out on patrol herself. The patrol turns out to be a light stroll through a nearby park, with fans recognizing Ji-nahan and even noticing Haruna beside her. Daniel asks if this is normal patrol work, and Ji-nahan explains that today is mostly for show, since visible heroes alone can discourage crime. Hajun bluntly asks when they are going back, earning a laugh from Ji-nahan and an immediate scolding from Daniel. Daniel tells him to take it seriously, but Hajun notices something she misses. Haruna looks just as bored and distant as he does. At exactly the moment Hajun has been waiting for, screams erupt through the park and 2 thieves burst out after snatching bags right in front of a famous hero. Ji-nahan is caught off guard for a beat, then orders anyone who can keep up to follow her and sprints after the thieves. Daniel immediately chases after her, but Hajun does not move yet because he knows this little theft is only bait. Instead, Hajun notices Haruna staring in one direction, and for the first time all day a strange spark appears in her empty eyes. Following her gaze, Hajun finds the real trigger of the episode, an unnamed old man quietly feeding pigeons on a park bench. Hajun realizes this is the altar's opening move, and he knows catching the thieves now would only make the enemy create even more chaos to pull him away. So Hajun chooses to play along, dashing after the thieves as a fake chase while trusting he can stop time and jump back to Haruna the instant he needs to. At 3 in the afternoon, Han Jae drags herself into the guild office looking wrecked after another stretch of overwork. While staring at her monitor, Jae suddenly remembers that today's field training includes the sidekick students she nominated. She pulls up the trainee list and freezes when she sees Haruna Ruel, Daniel, and especially Kim Hajun all chose this place. Jae can hardly believe the academy's most notorious rising star actually showed up instead of choosing a top hero elsewhere. Realizing there is no time to waste, she grabs her phone and tries to call Ji-nahan at once. But the call just rings, and Jae snaps in frustration when Ji-nahan still does not pick up. At the same time outside, Ji-nahan and Daniel are chasing 2 fleeing villains through the city, but the targets are too fast to catch. Even while running, Ji-nahan starts to suspect the suspects are not really escaping so much as luring them somewhere. The chase finally ends in a dead-end alley where the 2 suspects stand facing the wall as if they expected this stop all along. When the suspects turn around, their blank swollen-eyed faces are so wrong that both heroes tense up immediately. A second later, both suspects convulse, vomit blood, and collapse in a horrifying mess right in front of them. As Ji-nahan examines them, she is horrified to realize these bodies are not villains at all but ordinary civilians with no magic power. Elsewhere in a peaceful park, Haruna brightens completely when she recognizes the old man on the bench as her grandfather. Sitting beside him, Haruna happily chats with the only family member she truly opens up to. When he asks about school and friends, Haruna awkwardly admits she is not even sure she needs any. Then Haruna quickly adds that she does have one precious friend, the girl with glasses who has been taking care of her. When he pushes further, Haruna also brings up Kim Hajun as the kind boy who shared food with her. The moment he hears Hajun's name, the old man warns Haruna to be careful because kindness can hide a rotten nature. But Haruna calmly defends Hajun, insisting he does not feel like a bad person to her. The old man hides his surprise under a smile, accepts her answer, and tells her to head back before her supervising hero starts looking for her. Haruna waves goodbye and leaves, her bright expression fading as she walks away from the bench. Once Haruna is gone, his warm mask drops, and he broods over the fact that she is forming bonds outside his control. Thinking about Hajun's interest in Haruna, Zihar decides the boy should be eliminated, or at least brainwashed, before he becomes a bigger problem. He turns away from the lake and stops dead when Kim Hajun is suddenly standing right in front of him. Zihar tries to keep the grandfather act going, but Hajun cuts him off with a chilling title, Your Highness. That one line cracks Zihar's composure, because this boy somehow knows exactly who he is. In less than a blink, the busy park is replaced by a deserted alley, and Hajun advances with his golden hammer already in hand. Recognizing that hammer and the monster behind it, Zihar finally understands he is facing the irregular himself. Hajun closes in and asks the one question that decides everything. Who are you planning to kill? Hajun has already made up his mind, because among the altar's threats, Zihar's brainwashing is too dangerous to leave alive. Zihar steadies himself fast, admits Hajun knows his identity, and mocks him for coming alone anyway. Dark purple magic starts pouring off Zihar as he moves in much faster than a normal mage and reaches for Hajun's head. The brainwashing magic seeps into Hajun's head, and Zihar starts to smile as if the fight is already over. Then Zihar's vision goes black, because Hejun has already blown away the top half of his head before he can react. Even that does not kill him, and Hejun coldly watches while Zihar's liquefied flesh crawls back and rebuilds his face. Zihar is shaken now, because he never even saw the swing and his brainwashing still did nothing to Hejun. Realizing Hejun may not have a way to finish him, Zihar tries to slide into a casual conversation and buy time. Hejun answers by shearing off one of Zihar's arms with another invisible hit. When Zihar keeps talking, Hejun cuts off the other arm too and refuses to let him control the pace for even a second. The punishment gets worse when Hejun slices off both legs next, forcing Zihar to regenerate under constant pressure. Watching the endless repairs, Hejun smiles slightly because he has already found the weakness hidden inside Zihar's regeneration. Hejun tells him they are about to find out exactly how far that regeneration can really go, and Zihar finally breaks into fear. Zihar tries to stop him, but Hejun launches a non-stop barrage that keeps smashing, scattering, and interrupting every attempt to reform. The more Zihar is forced to regenerate, the more magic power he burns, until his screams thin out and his body finally stops coming back together. With Zihar's body finally dead, Hejun turns away without regret, satisfied that one of the altar's worst future threats is gone. But Zihar is not fully gone, because another body of his jolts awake in the altar headquarters in blinding pain. As he gasps for breath, Zihar realizes Hejun killed the other body so fast he could not even react before experiencing death through it. The cost is brutal too, because that duplicate carried half his magic power, and now Zihar is left shaking with both fear and fury. Instead of backing off, Zihar reaches a hard conclusion of his own: Kim Hejun must be killed somehow. By 6 in the evening, Ji Nahan is back at the guild master's room, awkwardly apologizing to Han Jael for missing those calls during the incident. Ji Nahan explains the chase ended with controlled civilians, and Jael tells her to leave that larger case to the Hero Association. When Ji Nahan asks why Jael called so urgently, Jael can only stare at her like she still has not figured out the real issue. Jael finally hands over the investigation papers Ji Nahan asked for earlier, the ones about the irregular's identity. Ji Nahan looks through the file and goes blank when the name tied to the irregular is Kim Hejun. She cannot reconcile that with the lazy-looking student she met, because in person he did not seem overwhelmingly strong at all. So Ji Nahan asks for the odds, and Jael activates her probability calculation to walk her through the evidence. She links together the bus terror case, the Nefertem hotel attack, and a citizen sketch from the dimensional dungeon, all pointing back to Hejun. Then Jael drops the number that matters. There is a 98.7% chance Kim Hejun is the irregular. Jael warns that other guilds have probably figured it out too, so this chance to move first will not stay open for long. And with that, Jael lays down the real order. Whatever it takes, they have to recruit Kim Hejun now. After reviewing Hajun's record, Ji Nahan casually admits she wanted him tracked down for one simple reason: she thought he sounded cool. She explains that if Hajun solved all those incidents without chasing fame, then he is acting out of real goodwill, which only makes her want to meet him more. Ji Nahan decides she will approach Hajun herself, and invite him to the guild if she gets the chance, while ordering Han Jael to keep the irregular's identity secret. The next morning, Ji Nahan drags the children out on another 6 a.m. patrol, and only Dan Yusul has enough energy to look alive. At the park, Ji Nahan splits the group into 2 teams and names an overjoyed Yusul as leader of Team 2. Hajun barely registers any of it, because he already thinks Haruna's current episode should be over after Zihar's apparent death. When Ji Nahan suddenly calls him along, Hajun realizes too late that Haruna and Yusul are gone, and he has been placed alone with her. Ji Nahan leads him on a long, uneventful patrol that feels more like a morning walk than hero work. After an hour, they finally stop for a short break by the lake, and Ji Nahan hands the exhausted Hajun a warm coffee. The quiet break turns weird fast when Ji Nahan starts openly feeling Hajun's arm and leg to check his body for hidden strength. Hajun protests when her hands roam too far, but Ji Nahan only admits she cannot feel any mana from him and keeps treating it like a serious check. As they resume patrol, Ji Nahan quietly concludes that the sleepy, low-mana boy behind her cannot possibly be the irregular after all. By late morning, Hajun is starving, but Ji Nahan makes him endure one last hour until the afternoon team arrives. Just 10 minutes before their shift ends, screams erupt nearby and their routine patrol snaps into a real emergency. They find 2 bleeding, stabbing victims on the street and 2 knife-wielding criminals sprinting away right in front of them. Ji Nahan gives chase at once, and Hajun follows while wondering if this madness looks like Zihar's work again. When the suspects split up, Hajun tells Ji Nahan to take one and leaves her the more visible chase. To keep up without exposing too much, Hajun slips into time stop and closes in on his target alone in the frozen street. Up close, the criminal's face turns Hajun cold, because this is not normal panic but a body grotesquely warped under real brainwashing. That grotesque look tells Hajun the truth immediately: Zihar somehow survived. A long silent system window appears to confirm it, praising his earlier kill as only half complete and raising Haruna's episode difficulty. The next alert upgrades it into an emergency quest, giving Hajun 30 minutes to kill Zihar for good. Hajun quickly guesses Zihar may have prepared another body somehow, but he decides the method does not matter as much as ending him properly this time. He drops time stop to question the victim, and a possessed civilian speaks in Zihar's voice, ordering Hajun to come to a department store if he wants to save his friend. The hostage threat should have angered him, but instead Hajun smiles, because Zihar has finally gathered enough trash in one place to clean up at once. He uses time stop again, leaves the unconscious citizen safely at a hospital entrance, and heads for the department store at his own pace. At the department store, Hajun freezes time and immediately notices the first bad sign. From outside, nobody is entering or leaving. Inside, the building looks normal at first, but the huge hall is so unnaturally quiet that every footstep feels wrong. Then the trap shows itself, as every shopper on every floor stops and turns those vacant eyes directly toward Hajun. Then the forbidden magician Zihar floats into view above the hall and welcomes Hajun with the smug confidence of a man who thinks he finally controls the board. Hajun stays calm, because after changing the story this many times, he already accepts that the future no longer follows the original game. To tighten the noose, Zihar brings out 2 hostages from the crowd, Dan Yasul unharmed but vacant, and Ji Nahan bruised, bleeding, and still resisting. When Ji Nahan meets Hajun's eyes, she silently mouths one desperate message at him: escape. Zihar raises the pressure by making hostages across the store press kitchen knives to their own throats if Hajun dares to move. Instead of panicking, Hajun quietly scans the 4th floor railing and spots exactly 3 cloaked officials waiting there. That count actually pleases him, and the small smile on Hajun's face unsettles Zihar far more than any threat would have. Ji Nahan tears herself against the brainwashing long enough to scream for Hajun to run, even as blood and pain rip through her body. The floating magician clicks his tongue at her resistance, because even his magic cannot fully control a top-ranked hero without enough power behind it. Hajun answers her with perfect calm, then reveals a radiant golden hammer in his hand and quietly tells her it will all be over soon. The instant Zihar recognizes what that hammer means, his confidence cracks and he screams for everyone to kill Hajun. Hostages on the 1st floor rush him with knives, but in the next instant they start dropping unconscious one after another like cut strings. Before Ji Nahan can even process the impossible, Hajun appears beside her, tells her to sleep, and knocks her out safely. Up on the 4th floor, Zihar's 3 cloaked officials finally voice what had been bothering them. This whole trap seems absurd for one boy. One cloaked official cannot fully dismiss the order though, and when Hajun smiles up at them, a cold warning crawls down his spine. When the hostages surge and Hajun moves, all 4 floors are cleared in an instant too fast for the officials to even read. Then one cloaked official is smashed away without warning and driven into the wall before the others can react. Hajun appears beside the last 2 cloaked officials, already holding one official's scabbard, and casually asks if those are their names. One official reaches for his sword and realizes too late that Hajun has already taken it, and planted it straight through the official smashed into the wall. The floating magician screams for them to attack, but the last 2 cloaked officials finally understand the real danger. They never even saw Hajun move. With the hostages down and the killers cornered, Hajun gives Zihar and the last 2 officials a simple final rule: move even an inch, and die. Inside the silent department store, Hajun warns the 2 cultists not to move, making it clear that any interference will get Zihar killed. Zihar ignores the threat and orders Roll and Jillian to attack, but Hajun vanishes before they can react. In the same instant, Hajun blitzes the room, hurling the 2 cultists down to the 1st floor and slamming Zihar with a surprise hit they never see coming. The 2 cultists rush back to shield Zihar, but Hajun slips past their guard again and keeps hammering the old wizard anyway. Hajun stops the 2 guards cold by pointing out the obvious: if they keep interfering, Zihar dies even faster. Seeing Zihar drain from controlling the hostages, Hajun stops going for the kill and shifts into interrogation mode because the wizard can no longer escape safely. Hajun turns his attention to the 2 magistrates, planning to squeeze pillar locations out of them before finishing the job. Zihar desperately calls to his men, and both magistrates instantly try to bite down on hidden suicide capsules before Hajun can question them. Hajun casually strips the capsules away with his power, drops them to the floor, and crushes the cultist's easy way out under his foot. When Roll blurts out a question instead of answering, Hajun answers with a hammer to the face. The 2nd cultist freezes in stunned silence, unable to grasp Hajun's speed, and then realizes the hammer is pointed at him next. Hajun demands the locations of the other pillars, hoping to wipe out more of the altar in one move. Jillian refuses and tells Hajun to kill him, so Hajun just shatters his limbs and leaves him alive but helpless. Roll finally offers a trade. He will talk only if Hajun answers one question first. Roll asks if Hajun is one of the revelators from the altar's scripture, and Hajun humors him for a second. The moment Roll calls him a liar instead of giving real information, Hajun cracks him again and gives up on cultist logic. Realizing these fanatics value doctrine over their own lives, Hajun decides to hand the surviving magistrates to the association for later questioning. Hajun gives the trembling Zihar one last chance to talk, warning him that the clock is almost up. Instead of cooperating, Zihar rants about the altar's revelation and blurts out the real target behind all this madness: Haruna Ruel, the child of everything. Zihar's obsession spills out completely when he claims Haruna belongs to him because he spent 10 years becoming her family. That one word, family, snaps Hejun's patience cleanly in half because he knows exactly what Zihar did to get close to Haruna. Zihar makes one last desperate stand by forcing out a blue barrier, but Hejun smashes straight through it and kills him. A quest window flashes success, and Hejun finally lets himself sag against the fountain, exhausted after the fight. Looking around at the unconscious shoppers, Hejun realizes he cannot just walk away from a department store full of collapsed hostages. He decides the association can clean up the mess, so he calls Chairman Kim Jong-yong and tells him to send ambulances now and ask questions later. With help finally on the way, Hejun just stays down and waits for the ambulances to arrive. A few minutes later, association teams flood the department store, and paramedics begin hauling out the collapsed victims. Hejun gets loaded into an ambulance too, mostly because he is too drained to argue with anyone. He sleeps through the ride and wakes up much later in a private hospital room with the sky already dark outside. Chairman Kim Jong-yong arrives looking grim and immediately asks what really happened in the department store. Hejun calmly hands over the whole ugly story, the altar attack, Zihar's mind control, and the fact that Ji Nahan learned his identity. The chairman thanks Hejun again and confirms that the two black-cloaked cultists are alive and already in custody. When Hejun worries those fanatics will never talk, the chairman confidently says the association can still break useful information out of them with guided questioning and a lie detector. Then the chairman asks the question Hejun did not want to hear at all. How should they spin this incident to the media? Hejun pushes back at once, saying there is no hard proof the irregular solved anything, so they should just leave it alone. The chairman reluctantly drops the real problem. People are already connecting Hejun to the irregular just because he was on the scene again. A headache hits immediately, and Hejun tries the simplest escape route by telling them to credit Ji Nahan instead. That idea dies fast when the chairman tells him the reporters are already running wild with stories about Ji Nahan and top student Kim Hejun saving the day together. Hejun reads the headlines and can only laugh bitterly at how shamelessly the media built a whole story out of almost nothing. Too drained to untangle the mess right now, Hejun shuts the conversation down and says they will deal with it later. After the chairman leaves, Hejun slips out of the hospital and starts walking at night because lying in bed is not helping his head. As he wanders the city, Hejun keeps turning over the same problem and even briefly considers holding a press conference just to deny being the irregular. The more he thinks about it, the more he starts leaning toward a safer image as Ji Nahan's promising helper instead of a suspicious irregular anomaly. Eventually he gives up on solving it tonight and drifts into a park, where the moonlit lake finally slows his thoughts down. There he spots Haruna by the lakeside, unexpectedly alone when he thought she would still be resting at the Mirror's Guild. Hejun walks over and learns she came outside simply because she was bored, but the quiet answer only makes him more aware of how fragile this moment really is for her. Because Haruna still does not know Zihar is dead, Hejun silently decides again that keeping that truth from her is the only kindness he can manage right now. Haruna's attention drifts to the bench where Zihar used to sit, and she walks there with a quiet, aching sense of longing. She sits down on that bench and pats the spot beside her, quietly asking Hejun to stay. Hejun sits with her, and for the first time Haruna calls him by name. She thanks him for the food from earlier, and the simple gratitude leaves Hejun awkwardly at a loss. Instead of trying to talk his way through it, Hejun gets up, buys 2 canned drinks, and brings one back for her. Back on the bench, Hejun explains his usual give-and-take logic. She gave Belle points before, so feeding her was just an even exchange. Haruna takes that rule seriously enough to ask whether she now has to give something back for the juice too. Hejun gently tells her no this time, because this one is just a gift. That answer lands immediately, and Haruna brightens as she drinks the juice with simple, genuine delight. When she finishes, Haruna stands up with a bright smile, thanks him again, and waves goodbye as she walks off into the park night. Left alone by the lake, Hejun smiles to himself, gets up before the park closes, and heads back toward the hospital with tomorrow's problems still waiting. On the final morning of sidekick training, Ji Nahan visits Hejun's hospital room and bluntly admits she still can't believe the quiet student is really an irregular level monster. Ji Nahan even squeezes Hejun's arm in fascination, teasing that his absurd strength does not match how normal he looks. When she brings up the secret again, Hejun firmly says he wants his irregular identity kept hidden for now, and Ji Nahan decides not to pry into his reasons. Instead, Ji Nahan suddenly tries to recruit him into her guild, only for Hejun's face alone to say absolutely not. She rushes to sell her guild's good people and benefits, but Hejun shuts it down by pointing out that scouting an ungraduated student is illegal, and that he is not interested anyway. Hejun can already tell her guild is packed with workaholics, so even 2 days around them was enough to convince him it would be a nightmare job. Hejun then calls out the real problem. Ji Nahan escaped to his room while her fans and reporters turned the hospital outside into complete chaos. Hejun points out that some of the journalists outside are probably waiting for him too, and Ji Nahan tries to spin it into a truce by saying they should help each other out. Hejun knows he can dodge the press if he has to, but the noise is wrecking his rest, and even Ji Nahan's Instagram message has not calmed her fans down. Realizing he will not get any peace otherwise, Hejun decides he should at least greet the crowd and then leave the hospital. When Ji Nahan asks if he is going out for interviews too, Hejun bluntly says no, He is leaving because there is nothing for him to do here and it is too noisy to rest. Ji Na-han gives up with a sigh, tells him to contact her later, and promises him a meal as Hajun heads for the door. But the moment the door opens, Chairman Kim Jong-yong is waiting outside with a serious face and says he has something important to discuss. Elsewhere in the principal's office at Rokia, Riella Harness and Choi Young-won enjoy seeing Kim Hajun's real name finally splashed across the front page. They agree this time Hajun will have a much harder time dodging attention, because his name has finally entered the public spotlight for real. Their mood turns serious when they count 3 villain attacks in a single year and realize the villain alliance is probably stepping out from hiding again. Riella warns that without him Korea is basically a time bomb, and Choi calmly asks her again to keep watching over Hajun as he grows. Using her clairvoyance, Riella quietly sees how badly Choi Young-won has faded, with his magic draining away and one of the sage's blue eyes already gone. When Riella asks whether he has found that man yet, Choi admits no, because with that personality he would never show himself while a sage like Choi is still alive. The story reaches back to the age of great chaos, when one of the 10 great heroes demanded superhumans rule humanity, and broke away after the other 9 rejected him. That rejected hero went on to gather followers across the world and founded the Villain Alliance. Back in the office, Choi predicts that old enemy is definitely in Korea now and will move the moment the sage's power disappears, or even try to kill him first. Riella tells him bluntly that in his current state he cannot win, but Choi still insists they cannot leave the sins of their generation for today's children to clean up. Soon after, Hajun rides toward the academy with Chairman Kim Jong-yong, already sensing this is about more than just getting past the reporters at the hospital. Hajun gets straight to the point, and the chairman finally explains that scouts are about to swarm him. Hajun reminds him student scouting is illegal, but the chairman warns that rule stops mattering when someone looks valuable enough to poach anyway. Then the real warning lands. It will not just be domestic guilds, foreign scouts will come too, just like they once did for Han Si-young. The chairman admits they cannot order Hajun to stay, especially when those offers could involve ridiculous money, but he still asks one thing anyway: will Hajun remain in Korea? Hajun goes quiet, but inside he is panicking because this all but confirms people have basically figured out how dangerous he really is. The chairman mistakes Hajun's silence for rejection and starts to despair. Then Hajun finally answers that he understands and will stay. For Hajun, the choice is simple. Huge money usually means huge trouble, so staying in Korea is the lazier and safer option. The chairman is deeply moved by the answer, while Hajun quietly plans to hide inside the academy for a while where even foreign scouts will hesitate to step in. The next day, Ji Na-han steps in front of a packed press conference and opens by confirming that an irregular really was involved in the department store incident. The room erupts instantly, with reporters shouting over each other and directly asking whether Kim Hajun is that irregular. Ji Na-han ignores the shouting and sticks to her prepared statement, explaining that an irregular was there and Kim Hajun fought beside them to catch the villain. She even makes sure to say the arrest would have been much harder without Hajun's help, pushing him into the spotlight while still separating him from the irregular rumor. When the reporters keep pushing for more about Hajun, Ji Na-han cuts them off with one clean answer: ask him directly. Watching the press conference on his phone, Hajun realizes this cover story is actually good enough, because being famous is still better than being treated as the irregular himself. He knows his name will spread anyway, but he would rather be known as a promising student who helped catch a villain than as the terrifying unknown behind all those disasters. After a long breath, Hajun accepts that he will have to endure this level of fame for now as long as his daily life does not become impossible. Then he opens his status window for the first time in a while and is surprised to see his level, fame, strength, and stamina have all climbed quite a bit. He figures the growth makes sense after all the time he has spent inside stop time, even if it still feels slow compared to real superhuman students. For a second he happily imagines running as fast as a car and showing off hero-like strength, even though he knows that day is still years away. Still, what he really wants is much simpler. Better stats would just let him swing his hammer more comfortably and finish jobs faster. Satisfied enough, Hajun lies down to enjoy the rest of his short weekend, because time spent abusing time stop has made normal rest feel precious. Monday morning at Rokia feels wrong immediately, because the classroom is far too quiet for a bunch of first years. After one look around, Hajun remembers why everyone is suddenly acting human. Midterms are next week. The test matters because first-year grades decide what level of student requests they can legally take, which means better fieldwork, more fame, and much better pay. Liam, smart enough that he does not need to cram, looks around at the desperate revising and decides the whole scene is painfully boring. Anna tells Liam to shut up and study, but that only makes him even more restless. Then Liam spots Hajun, the latest student celebrity, and lights up at the chance to hear an interesting story. But the second Liam gets closer, he freezes in total disbelief at what he is seeing on Hajun's desk. One by one, Anna, Yusiola, Haruna, Lee Jua, Han Si-young, and half the class all turn and stare for the same reason: Kim Hajun is studying. To his classmates, Hajun is the lazy powerhouse, so this quiet textbook scene feels more unbelievable than it should. Liam marches up and demands to know who this is, because to him the real Kim Hajun would never sit there studying like this. Anna, Lee Jua, and Yuseola get weirdly concerned too, with Yuseola even offering to use her ability, as if Hejun might actually be sick. That is when Hejun finally realizes just how bad his class image has become if ordinary studying makes people look at him like a medical emergency. Inside, he remembers that he used to be a top 10 student in normal school, so this reaction hits him harder than he expected. He only started studying because using time stop to cheat exams felt cheap, but now his classmates have hit his pride too. Before the scene can get any stranger, Teacher Han walks in and orders Liam back to his seat so she can start morning roll call. Roll call ends quickly, and just before leaving, Teacher Han calls Hejun and Han Si-young and tells them the principal wants to see them. In Principal Choi Jung-won's office, he calls Kim Hejun and Han Si-young in because he needs a quiet favor from them. He slides over a mission paper for the joint episode Elixir, sending the two boys straight into the details. Choi explains that strange rumors are spreading among weaker first years. A broker in Delher sells a potion that can rapidly boost a superhuman's growth. Because several low-ranked students have suddenly improved too fast, Choi wants proof of whether the potion is real and whether it comes with dangerous side effects. Han Si-young accepts at once, but Hejun hesitates for a different reason and suddenly realizes Lee Ju he should have been on this job before her injuries changed the episode. Instead of dodging another changed future, Hejun decides to stop worrying about punishment and says yes anyway. Choi notices the change in Hejun right away and thanks him with a pleased, almost relieved smile. Since both boys are too recognizable to enter Delher openly, Choi hands them disguise rings made from artifacts instead of ordinary magic tools. Han Si-young tries his ring first, and his black hair and dark eyes shift into a blonde, blue-eyed foreign look almost instantly. Then Hejun puts on his own ring, and the artifact sputters and backfires instead of disguising him. Even Choi is rattled, because a rare-grade disguise artifact should have worked on almost anyone. The mission still moves forward, and with Choi's help the pair secure invitations to Delher, the huge interdimensional market that runs on strict rules against fighting and broken deals. After classes, Hejun and Han Si-young meet on the academy field in their cover outfits to leave for Delher. Han Si-young grumbles about being stuffed into a bodyguard suit, and Hejun bluntly tells him he looks too serious to pass for anything else. They go over the fake names one more time. Han Si-young is the overseas bodyguard Hanbir Anzuryong, and Hejun is the rich kid Isahan. Once they are ready, the two tear the ticket together and jump into Delher. In a blink, they arrive in Delher's Grand Plaza, surrounded by tall buildings and a wide fountain square. Hejun immediately warns Han Si-young not to draw the sword at his waist, because using superhuman power here gets you thrown out for good. When Han Si-young notices how sure he sounds, Hejun brushes it off and confidently leads the way anyway. The bright market gives way to a damp hidden corner, where Hejun stops in front of a worn shack that looks far too empty to matter. Inside the shack there is nothing at all, but Hejun checks the floorboards instead of the walls. He lifts a loose board and reveals the real entrance, a staircase hidden underground. Hejun gives a casual explanation about checking up or down when the obvious exits fail, and Han Si-young follows him into the basement. At the bottom, they enter a hidden room where the broker is already waiting in a robe, speaking with an eerie cave-like voice. The old man lowers his hood, reveals a gaunt face, and asks where they came from before Hejun quietly shows his student ID. Hejun cuts to the point and asks for the elixir, but the old man sizes them up instead of naming a price. Then the altered future bites back. A system penalty gives the old man a strength reading skill, and his eyes turn pitch black as he appraises them. The old man laughs that his elixirs are only for the weak, so Hejun's rich young master act should not have fooled him. But in the next breath the old man freezes, staring at Hejun as if he has seen something impossible. Tears spill down the old man's face as he grabs Hejun's hand and marvels that a superhuman this weak could actually exist. The old man apologizes warmly, convinced Hejun survived the academy entrance exam through sheer effort despite having almost no magical power. Hejun can barely endure it, because the old man's pity is sincere and every word lands a little too close to the truth. Moved by what he thinks is Hejun's tragic struggle, the old man says he will give him an elixir for free. Jade green magic coils around the old man as he forms the potion on the spot, revealing the rare distinct magical power behind his elixirs. He explains that he was once looked down on for being weak too, and that his power lets him mix magic into water to create growth-boosting elixirs. The old man hands the bottle over with open encouragement, and Hejun forces himself to answer politely and accept it. With the elixir secured, Hejun leaves the hideout looking gloomy enough that even Delher's streets feel less lively around him. As they head back toward the plaza to leave Delher, Han Si-young calmly praises Hejun's supposed ability to hide his strength, making the whole thing even worse. Still, Hejun's mind shifts back to the mission itself, and he judges the elixir as dangerously addictive even if its growth effect is genuinely impressive. Because his own willpower is abnormally high, Hejun even wonders if the side effect might not work on him and decides to discuss that later with Choi. On the way back, Han Si-young suddenly stops in front of Hermes, Delher's elite information guild, and the real reason becomes obvious to Hejun. Han Si-young asks for a minute inside, and Hejun agrees to wait outside while he handles private business with the guild. Left alone with the untouched mission cash, Hejun decides he has earned one small treat and buys street food from a vendor instead. He settles onto a bench outside and waits, snacking in the plaza while Delher keeps moving around him. Inside Hermes, Han Si-young is greeted by Guildmaster Lorelei Hills, who instantly sees through his disguise and guesses no one else would ask for this kind of search. His request is exactly what Hajun suspected. Han Si-young wants Hermes to find the Sword King. Lorelei says the request is possible but expensive and risky, because tracking a figure like the Sword King could cost at least $1 billion. Han Si-young has nowhere near that kind of money, but he still stubbornly asks her to take the request now and trust him to pay later. Lorelei laughs at how painfully honest that answer is, then agrees to help without payment if she can speak to the friend waiting outside. From the window, Lorelei picks out Hajun below on the bench, still eating street food, and makes him the price of Han Si-young's request. About 10 minutes later, Han Si-young comes back outside and stares at Hajun with the awkward face of a man about to ask for a very unfair favor. He finally asks Hajun for help, admitting he needs him to speak with the woman waving from the Hermes window above. Hajun immediately realizes Han Si-young basically traded him for information, but the request ties into the main story too neatly to refuse. So with a tired sigh, Hajun agrees, tells Han Si-young to pay him back later, and trudges toward Hermes to meet Lorelei. Kim Hajun walks into a private VIP room and finds Lorelei Hills already waiting for him like she owns the place, with 2 heavy bodyguards standing behind her sofa. Lorelei opens by reciting Hajun's public profile, then points out the real problem. For someone so famous, almost nothing about his past can actually be found. As Lorelei casually asks him to share more about himself, Hajun suddenly feels unnaturally calm and dreamy, and realizes she is already messing with his emotions. Hajun shakes it off fast, fixes Lorelei with a flat stare, and asks why she is so interested in him specifically. One bodyguard loses patience and snaps at Hajun for being rude, clearly ready to put him in his place. Instead of flinching, Hajun coolly tells Lorelei he already understands what she wants, and that she can stop pretending. When Lorelei admits her secret is out, Hajun stands up with a dark look and pulls out Maharazu, letting the hammer expand in his hand with bright golden light. In one instant Hajun vanishes from where he stood, and Lorelei finds the golden hammer stopped right in front of her nose before she can react. The bodyguards lunge too late, and Lorelei has to shout for them to stop before Hajun warns her that he is already in a bad mood. Hajun pulls the hammer back just enough to spare her, then coldly tells Lorelei to take this as a warning and never try tricks like that again. The room falls silent until Lorelei finally raises both hands and apologizes, admitting she only pushed that far to gather information. Hajun sits back down but calls out the real problem immediately, saying her apology means nothing while she is still using her power on him. Lorelei apologizes again and drops emotion control, and Hajun stays clear-headed because his extreme mental strength instantly told him those feelings were fake. With the act over, Hajun openly confirms that he is the hidden irregular she wanted to verify. He explains why he revealed it at all. Someone is digging into him, so he came to warn Lorelei first and make sure she never sells his information. Still remembering how close she came to dying, Lorelei accepts the warning and promises she will keep anything about Hajun off the market. Once that issue is settled, Hajun calmly flips the conversation and says he has a favor to ask her instead. Lorelei sends her bodyguards out so they can talk privately, realizing this next part matters. Now alone, Hajun asks Lorelei to investigate one specific name, Liber Lap Hilton Philherman, the ruined noble heir who originally owned his body. Lorelei admits she does not know the name, but she offers to dig into it for him anyway. Hajun agrees to the search and offers to pay later, but Lorelei refuses a fee because keeping a good relationship with him is worth more. They seal the deal with a handshake, and Lorelei quietly revises her opinion of Hajun as not just powerful, but much more slippery than she expected. Lorelei asks for his phone number, deciding that if she cannot sell information on the irregular, she can at least build a valuable connection to him. By 7 p.m. back at the academy, Hajun and Han Si-young head straight to the principal's office and hand over the elixir to Sage Choi Jungwon. Choi Jungwon quickly reads the elixir's structure, recognizes it as magic mixed into water, and warns that whatever it boosts probably comes with ugly side effects. Pleased that they fulfilled his request, the principal offers both boys a favor in return and tells them to think carefully about what they want. When the principal says it is late and they should rest, Si-young gets up to leave, but Hajun stays quiet, still thinking hard. Hajun finally says he still has something to discuss, so Si-young leaves first and the principal keeps Hajun behind for a private talk. Alone with him, Hajun asks what Choi Jungwon plans to do if the elixir's side effects are severe, and hears that the current plan is to arrest the seller and ban it. Hajun then asks for the whole case himself, saying he wants to remove the side effects and keep the elixir's power boost instead of throwing it away. The principal presses him because the side effects are part of the magic itself, but Hajun answers with total confidence that he knows how to strip that trait away. Choi Jungwon's special sight tells him Hajun is telling the truth, and that impossible answer leaves the old sage smiling in real fascination. After that meeting, Hajun returns to his dorm wanting to collapse into bed, but he forces himself to sit at his desk and start studying instead. Once he gets going, Hajun slips back into old habits and studies with brutal focus, burning through memorization faster than normal. An hour later he hits the real wall. Memorization is fine, but the Academy's dungeon analysis calculations make no sense to him at all. He starts thinking he needs help from someone good at studying, even if his pride does not love that idea. Right then his phone lights up with messages from Anna, Uciela, Li Jua, and Liam, and all of them somehow already know exams are giving him trouble. The support should help, but Liam's smug message just makes Hejun more embarrassed and irritated about asking anyone. Before he can decide what to do, someone knocks on his door, and the visitor turns out to be Lee Juhee herself. Hejun is stunned because she was supposed to still be in the hospital, and Juhee admits she came only because she wanted to thank him properly. Once inside, Hejun quickly figures out from her guilty face that she did not really get discharged so much as run away from the hospital. He tells her not to push herself before she is fully healed, but Juhee awkwardly insists this is her first time being helped, and she really did not know how else to repay him. When Juhee offers any help within her power, Hejun immediately spots the perfect use for that promise. He grabs a textbook off the desk and asks her to teach him, turning her heartfelt gratitude into emergency exam tutoring on the spot. Juhee asks what exactly he does not understand, and Hejun bluntly hands over every calculation-heavy subject and says everything. The tutoring routine sticks, and by Friday Juhee has been coming every evening to teach him, while Hejun's studying finally starts going smoothly. As the lessons continue, Juhee is honestly surprised by how good Hejun is at studying once someone explains the parts he was missing. Hejun tells her that is because she teaches well, and for once the compliment is completely sincere. Hejun asks her to keep teaching him through the weekend too, but Juhee hesitates and says they should not keep meeting at his room tomorrow. She explains that students have started the wrong kind of rumor because the student council president keeps visiting Hejun's place every evening. Hejun accepts that they should avoid causing her trouble, but before they can settle new plans his phone buzzes with a fresh message. The instant Hejun reads it, the mood flips and a pleased smile spreads across his face. He tells Juhee he cannot make it tomorrow after all and that they should move the lesson to Sunday instead. The reason is sitting on his screen in plain words. Chairman Kim Jong-yong has found the headquarters of the altar. Before sunrise on Saturday, Kim Ha-jun rides out in Chairman Kim Jong-yong's car, looking half asleep while the chairman worries about sending him alone into a villain base. Kim Jong-yong reminds him the 2 captured villains were judged A-rank threats and the altar still has 6 more like them, so barging in solo feels reckless even to him. Ha-jun brushes the warning off because he only wants to end this quickly and get back to the academy. An hour later they arrive at an ordinary 2-story house, and the chairman admits this absurdly normal place is the hideout named by interrogation. To Ha-jun, the house is immediately familiar because this is the place where Zihar first revealed himself as the true villain in Haruna Rule's story. Before entering, Ha-jun asks for a moment, and the chairman awkwardly reminds him to use the expensive concealment artifact he bought for him. The item is a perception obstruction bandage that can mosaic part of his body, but Ha-jun privately remembers he is terrible at aiming it where he wants. He still wraps the bandage on his arm just to humor the chairman, promising it will be over fast. The next instant Ha-jun vanishes with time stop, leaving the chairman blinking outside the house in stunned silence. Inside the frozen house, Ha-jun heads straight to a first-floor library because he remembers a hidden basement entrance should be there somewhere. He cannot remember which book opens the passage, so he gives up searching and starts smashing the shelf with Maharazu until the mechanism triggers. The shelf creaks open like a secret door and reveals stairs descending into the basement. Ha-jun freezes time again and descends into a dark ritual room that smells of snuffed candles. At the bottom, he finds a 6-winged humanoid statue, an altar, and a massive stone gate leaking dark purple energy, exactly the route he was looking for. But when he tries to step through, an invisible barrier stops him cold, and he realizes the altar must have sealed the gate from the other side after Zihar's death. With no way through, he gives up on the raid for now and turns to leave rather than waste time. Then Piraten warns him from inside Maharaza that someone is coming. Minutes later, 4 black-robed priests come through the gate escorting 6 hooded captives with their hands tied, the prisoners shaking in fear and too confused to understand what is happening. The priests casually decide to kill the captives here, close the gate, and split up to find the surviving high priests now that Zihar's magic is gone. One priest adds that he will handle the child of everything, making it clear Haruna Rule is now their next target. As the knives close in, sudden light from Ha-jun's glowing hammer floods the underground room, and the priests whip around in shock. The priests instantly recognize the irregular who killed Zihar, and their confidence collapses into panic. Desperate, the priests yank the captives close, press knives to their throats, and shout for Ha-jun not to move. Ha-jun answers with time stop, and when the moment ends, the priests except their leader are already collapsing with their own knives buried in their hearts. While the last priest stares in disbelief, Ha-jun casually tests the gate again, and the priest realizes how disastrous it would be if he reached the altar headquarters. The priest screams through the gate for someone on the other side to close it immediately. Ha-jun decides one survivor will be useful after all and tells the trembling priest to deliver a message to the remaining 2 pillars. Instead of sparing him cleanly, Ha-jun breaks both of the priest's legs and drops him to the floor in agony. Ha-jun leans over him and says the message plainly, tell them he has the child of everything. To make sure the warning lands, Ha-jun crushes the priest's hands too and leaves him screaming on the floor. Then Ha-jun drags the ruined priest to the gate and orders the altar to come themselves if they want her back. After shoving the broken messenger through the gate, Ha-jun turns back toward the room, where the dead priests and bound captives are all that remain. His phone suddenly rings, and the chairman's anxious voice asks if everything is alright after hearing the crash from inside the house. Ha-jun answers in the same flat tone as always and simply asks Kim Jan-young to call an ambulance. He leaves the investigation to the association and heads back to the academy alone instead of accepting a ride. At the scene, Kim Jan-young looks over the rescued captives and ruined hideout and finally understands why Ha-jun insisted on going in alone. Ashamed but impressed, the chairman quietly resolves to support Ha-jun however he can from now on. By Sunday morning in his dorm, Ha-jun wakes up refreshed at 6 after sleeping for more than half a day. His stomach growls hard enough to send him outside in slippers, a white shirt, and black pants to hunt for breakfast. On the quiet campus, he spots 2 students tearing through their morning run with absurd intensity like racing cars. The pair notice him, change course on the spot, and charge straight at him so fast that Ha-jun instinctively braces. They stop right in front of him in a cloud of dust, and Lee Joo-hee casually says she did not expect Kim Ha-jun to be awake this early. Ha-jun explains he only came out to eat, and Joo-hee immediately offers to buy breakfast since their workout is already done. Han Se-young just gives a quiet nod, and Ha-jun accepts, partly out of politeness and partly because he is curious where these two usually eat. Instead of anything fancy, Joo-hee brings them to a Korean soup house, which turns out to be her real comfort food spot. The restaurant quickly fills with whispers because 2 Academy stars walking in together is already enough to draw a crowd, and Ha-jun gets swept into that attention too. Ha-jun does not care much about the stares and focuses on enjoying his soup. Over breakfast, Joo-hee asks if he is ready for the practical exam and warns that this one matters just as much as the written test. When she explains the practical includes a mana control section, Ha-jun freezes because that test was never supposed to be part of the midterms he remembered. A penalty notice appears at once. The storyline has shifted, the joint midterm episode just got harder, and Ha-jun now needs at least 90 points in mana control for a sub-quest reward. A week later, after getting through the written exam, Ha-jun arrives at the special class training gym for the practical and knows this mana test is now the real problem. As the students warm up by circulating mana, Ha-jun closes his eyes and crosses his arms, not to concentrate elegantly but because he is internally panicking. The other students completely misread him and start admiring what they think is incredible mana compression from the top student. Inside, Ha-jun is doing frantic math instead. If he wants a top-tier grade for future student requests, he needs almost perfect points on this section he barely understands. Then the examiner arrives. A gentle brown-haired mage in a black pointed hat and cloak introduces herself as instructor Yun Se-hwa. Her name alone stuns the room because Yun Se-hwa is famous even at Rokia Academy and normally trusted with the graduation class. Yun Se-hwa begins the explanation with a neat bit of summoning magic, calling a white table and a glass box packed with heavy steel balls into the middle of the gym. She explains that each tiny ball weighs around 7 kilograms, and the test is to move them with magic alone and shape them into any sculpture the student imagines. To show what real control looks like, she lifts the steel balls into the air and smoothly assembles them into a bird that flutters like it is alive. The bird circles once, breaks apart into steel balls again, and Yun Se-hwa calmly tells the class to come forward one by one. In the academy gym, Yun Se-hwa's mana control test leaves almost every student straining just to make the iron beads tremble. Watching closely, Anna leans over to Ha-jun and says she thinks she figured out both Yun Se-hwa's real focus and the secret of the iron beads. Anna explains that the test is not about shaping mana at all, but about feeding each bead the right amount so it will move. When Ha-jun asks why she is telling him during the exam, Anna just smiles and says knowing the trick and actually doing it are different things. Anna teases that Ha-jun must already know all this because he looks too calm, and he stays silent instead of admitting he had no idea. When her turn comes, Anna steps up to the table and calmly puts her theory into practice. Under intense focus, Anna lifts bead after bead until 91 iron beads hover in a clean hexagonal formation. Yun Se-hwa stops the test with warm praise, impressed that Anna understood the lesson and moved more beads than any beginner before her. As Anna puts the beads back, Ha-jun quietly realizes her demonstration may have given him a usable shortcut after all. A few minutes later, Ha-jun finally steps up, and Yun Se-hwa studies him with real curiosity because he is the mysterious top-ranked transfer student everyone suspects is an irregular. Ha-jun copies the same strained pose as the others, but Yun Se-hwa is thrown off because she cannot sense any mana from him at all. Then the whole box erupts as every iron bead blasts upward like gunfire, hammering the ceiling and leaving the room staring in shock. Even Ha-jun is caught off guard, because he only meant to float the beads lightly and accidentally launched them with too much force. Yun Se-hwa carefully asks what he did, and Ha-jun can only awkwardly confirm that yes, this disaster was somehow his doing. Bizarre or not, the test still counts as a success, and a quest window pops up to reward Ha-jun for clearing the magic control exam with the top score. At 1 in the afternoon, Ha-jun heads back to his dorm satisfied, planning to rest because he is already confident about the final practical waiting the next day. His break lasts only a moment before his phone buzzes, and the sender turns out to be Lorelei Hills from the Hermes Information Guild. Ha-jun calls her right away, and Lorelei says even her guild could not find anything on the person he asked about from the name alone. When Lorelei presses for more clues, Hajun suddenly remembers the old house Lee Bear lived in before he took over this body, and realizes it may hold answers. He tells Lorelei he will investigate the house himself this weekend first, and she agrees to wait until Saturday. Time skips past Tuesday's final practical, and Hajun breezes through the villain response exam because he already knows the format and can abuse time stop to ace it. By Wednesday morning in class, the midterms are over, and the room splits between students crushed by their scores and others happily talking. Anna finally asks Hajun what rank he got, and the nearby top students all lean in to see for themselves. His report card stuns the group. Hajun placed fourth in the written exam, first in the practicals, and his overall grade marks him as top-tier hero material. Liam reacts the loudest because he actually placed below Hajun in fifth, which makes Hajun realize Lee Jua must have taken third. The door opens and Han Isel steps in to announce that with rankings finalized, the students can now start using the Academy's student request system. That announcement locks Hajun onto his real goal, because he is waiting for Liam's quest this week and plans to get involved. That night, Hajun opens the Academy app, confirms Liam accepted a student request, and immediately signs up to support the mission. By Thursday at 3 in the afternoon, Hajun meets Liam at the crowded Bukansan entrance, where heroes gather because the mountain is packed with dungeons and artifacts. Liam is surprised Hajun joined this kind of field quest, but Hajun brushes it off instead of admitting he came because Liam is in danger. A Hanwha Guild field member comes over to greet them, happy that both Liam and the rumor-covered Kim Hajun really accepted the job. As the Hanwha Guild guide leads them into the mountain, he explains that the job is artifact gathering in an unexplored low-grade dungeon, which still counts as dangerous because nobody knows its true level yet. On the way in, the guild guide quietly sizes Hajun up, unsettled by how relaxed he looks for a beginner heading toward an unidentified dungeon. After about 10 minutes, Hajun and Liam reach a cave staging area where several armed guild members are already waiting outside the dungeon. At the cave, the raid leader steps forward with sharp curiosity, and immediately asks why there is an extra student beyond the one they expected. Once the situation is explained, the red-haired raid leader realizes the extra student is Kim Hajun, and her interest jumps because even the guild has heard the rumors around him. The raid leader welcomes both students, says the job should mostly be carrying loot, and still warns them not to drop their guard inside an unknown dungeon. Then the raid leader turns to her team and loudly gives the order to begin the dungeon raid. Before entering the dungeon, Han Sungwon hands Hajun and Liam a huge gear bag, and Hajun immediately realizes he does not want to drag all that weight inside. Hajun secretly freezes time, removes the gear he knows they will not need, hides it in the forest, and comes back acting like nothing happened. With the bag suddenly manageable, Hajun says he is ready, and Han Sungwon leads the team into the dungeon. Inside, the dungeon feels wrong right away because the cave is bright, comfortable, and almost welcoming instead of cold and dangerous. After 10 quiet minutes without a single monster in sight, Lee Young-ha decides this place is a trap dungeon and orders an immediate retreat. The exit vanishes behind a newly formed clear wall, and the team's mood drops from caution to outright alarm. Lee Young-ha slams the barrier with a full-force punch, but even that heavy hit only makes the wall shudder. When the team wizard checks the magic, she confirms the barrier is high-level enough to need multiple intermediate magicians, so retreat is no longer an option. Lee Young-ha tries to hold the team in place, but a blue magic circle suddenly blooms under Liam and spreads beneath everyone. A second clear wall snaps up around the circle before anyone can escape, and the whole group is teleported away in an instant. Hajun lands alone in a colder, damper underground section and immediately recognizes that he has reached the Rio basement route from the original episode. Knowing he needs to move unseen, Hajun enlarges Maharazu and wraps on the identity-hiding bandage until his face blurs into a mosaic. Phileton warns Hajun that several strong beings are nearby, and quest windows pop up telling him this dungeon is full of monsters and beasts worth hunting. Hajun decides to make the most of it and heads deeper in, aiming first to find whoever entered this dungeon before the raid team. Elsewhere in the maze, Liam keeps walking alone and starts to suspect the teleport circle was not meant to kill intruders, but to guide them deeper. As he advances, Liam reasons that a trap dungeon like this probably hides a magic crystal core, maybe even alongside an artifact. A low-ranked monster lunges at Liam, and he casually cuts it down without breaking stride. At a fork in the road, Liam spots human footprints heading left and chooses to trust that trail. The deeper Liam goes, the stronger the blood smell gets, and the clean, untouched walls only make the scene feel more wrong. At the end of the path, Liam finds a lone man with long black hair and red eyes waiting in the middle of the stench. Liam demands to know who he is, but the stranger ignores the question and mutters nervously that he was supposed to stay hidden from discovery. Then the man recognizes Liam by name, tilts his head at a grotesque angle, and starts smiling like this lucky encounter is exactly what he wanted. Without another warning, Blood Demon swings his great sword straight at Liam and turns the meeting into a kill attempt. Meanwhile, the separated raid team manages to regroup in a huge underground field, but they are already surrounded by monsters and magical beasts. Han Sungwon confirms he can still sense Hajun and Liam alive somewhere in the dungeon, which gives Lee Young-ha just enough hope to keep pushing. Because the kids could be in danger at any moment, Lee Young-ha decides to burn through her strength and wipe out the nearby swarm fast. Her punch detonates through the field in a brutal shockwave that smashes monsters into the walls and bursts them apart. The attack works, but the recoil is brutal, and Lee Young-ha drops to her knees coughing and drained. Even barely able to stand, she insists they move for Ha-jun and Liam, but a new tremor cuts that plan short. A far bigger horde charges toward them, so the team forms a desperate defensive circle and prepares for another impossible fight. But the rushing monsters do not attack them at all, and instead sprint past in blind panic as if something worse is right behind them. Then a storm-like pressure rolls in, and Lee Young-ha realizes the thing coming now has the presence of the dungeon boss itself. A 5-meter twin-head ogre finally appears, but it is not hunting them. It is half dead, bleeding blue blood, and running for its life. Before anyone can make sense of it, one of the ogre's heads bursts open and the boss crashes face first to the ground. Out of the dust, a mosaic-faced figure carrying a golden hammer steps into view, and the raid team instantly realizes the irregular is here. Ha-jun says nothing, but his silent presence is so unnerving that even the veterans cannot move for a second. Instead of attacking, Ha-jun points back toward the tunnel he came from, quietly showing them where the safe way out should be. As Ha-jun turns to leave, Lee Young-ha urgently begs him to save the 2 missing kids, and he pauses just long enough to nod. Ha-jun keeps searching the maze for Liam, freezing time at every fork and asking Philiton which path to take. Philiton senses active combat ahead, and Ha-jun realizes Liam has likely stumbled into the Red Quest route with the vigilante assassin called Blood Demon. Expecting the worst, Ha-jun keeps chaining time stop through the maze and rushes toward the sound of clashing steel. But when Ha-jun finally reaches the fight, the scene is nothing like the original bad ending because Liam is still alive and matching Blood Demon blow for blow. Ha-jun watches even closer and is stunned to see Liam smiling through the pressure, calmly blocking the killer's greatsword instead of collapsing under it. As Liam's spear grows sharper and faster with every exchange, Ha-jun holds back and realizes he is watching Liam break through in real time. Watching from the side, Ha-jun realizes Liam is changing in the middle of the fight and decides not to interfere yet. The Blood Demon keeps pressing Liam with his greatsword, but Liam starts reading the attacks and slipping past them with surprising precision. Instead of getting angry, the Blood Demon lights up with twisted excitement when Liam survives longer than expected. When the Blood Demon speeds up to corner him, Liam finds a tiny opening and drives his spear into the demon's shoulder. The Blood Demon barely reacts to the wound and stares at Liam like he has found a new toy worth testing. Liam knows almost everything is against him, so he bets his life on the technique he learned on the artificial island. The duel turns brutal again as Liam barely blocks another heavy strike and gets driven backwards step by step. For a moment Liam feels everything sharpen, as if time slows down, and he sends a perfect spear thrust straight for the demon's eye. Liam hits his limit first and collapses before that final thrust can land. With the fun gone, the Blood Demon coldly raises his greatsword to finish the unconscious Liam. Then footsteps break the silence, and a mosaic-hidden figure with a golden hammer warns that if the sword moves, the Blood Demon dies. The Blood Demon treats the threat like a game and deliberately swings at Liam anyway just to see what happens. Ha-jun answers instantly, smashing the Blood Demon so hard he is blasted into the ceiling. The beating does not stop, and Ha-jun hammers him into the ground so fast the demon cannot even react. The Blood Demon unleashes his blood ability in panic, but every spike he forms is shattered before it can matter. For the first time since facing a boss in the past, the Blood Demon finally understands real fear and realizes Ha-jun's threat was not a bluff. One last crushing blow ends the fight. Elsewhere at a restaurant near Bakansan, Millie and a red mohawked ally complain that the Blood Demon wandered off again while their silver-haired boss sits with them. Their table talk makes it clear the Blood Demon is dangerous even to his own side, and only their boss can really restrain him. Millie offers the menu to her silver-haired boss, who flatly admits she cannot read Korean and leaves the choice to Millie. The quiet meal plans die instantly when the silver-haired boss senses the Blood Demon has been hit and orders everyone to move. Back in the dungeon, Ha-jun confirms the Blood Demon is down and turns his attention to the unconscious Liam. As he studies Liam, Ha-jun concludes that Liam has triggered a true superhuman awakening beyond the pinnacle of limits. Ha-jun decides this unexpected growth is actually good news, because stronger allies mean fewer impossible fights for him later. Ha-jun freezes time, carries the unconscious Liam to safety, and returns knowing the Syndicate will notice the Blood Demon's death soon. Ha-jun stays anyway, because if Liam's final enemy shows up now, this may be his only chance to test whether he can kill her first. Outside near Bakansan, the silver-haired boss orders the red mohawk man to open a gate to the Blood Demon's location, while Millie confirms the target. Just before entering, the silver-haired girl freezes when a deep voice in her head warns that stepping through the gate now means death. The silver-haired boss obeys the warning at once, her eyes turning into vertical golden pupils as she throws up a dragon-language barrier around the group before entering. The group steps through the gate and emerges inside the cold hidden underground space where Ha-jun has been waiting. The instant they arrive, a brutal force slams into the fresh barrier at face level and proves the warning was real. When the attackers finally look ahead, they find Ha-jun already waiting there, hidden by a mosaic and holding the golden hammer that struck them. Millie recognizes the golden hammer and urgently warns her boss that the hidden enemy may be Korea's infamous irregular. The silver-haired boss ignores the title talk and asks the hidden figure only one thing: was he the one who killed the blood demon? Ha-jun immediately realizes the enemy put up a dragon language barrier before entering, and that defense ruins any easy kill plan. Even knowing the odds are bad, Ha-jun still walks forward because chances like this do not come twice. Ha-jun freezes time beside the barrier and starts a brutal workaround. Stack hammer blows into the shield until all the force lands at once. He keeps hammering the frozen barrier over and over, ready to spend a month building up enough stored impact to break it. Inside the barrier, the silver-haired boss hears the voice named Leonon warn that she cannot defeat this enemy and should run. She rejects the warning in fury, convinced her dragon magic domain should still crush the irregular. Then the irregular vanishes from her sight, and the voice in her head quietly reveals the terrifying truth: he has transcended. All the stored hammer force detonates at once, and the dragon barrier shudders so violently that the whole underground chamber starts collapsing around them. The barrier is hurled through wall after wall, and inside it the silver-haired boss takes such a savage hit that she spits blood. Ha-jun keeps pace with the hurtling barrier and smashes it again mid-chase, refusing to give the group a second to recover. By the time the barrier slams to a stop near the dungeon's far end, the silver-haired boss can barely breathe and can only watch Ha-jun approach again through the rubble. Ha-jun's next hammer blow finally opens a visible crack in the dragon barrier, and the silver-haired boss is horrified that her absolute defense can break at all. But the crack starts knitting shut immediately, and after all that effort Ha-jun can only let out a frustrated breath at how little real progress he made. Too hurt to speak dragon words through the blood in her throat, the silver-haired boss can only kneel inside the barrier and burn with helpless rage. Before Ha-jun can press further, the red mohawked man tears open an escape gate from inside the barrier, while Millie stays close to the injured boss. Knowing he still cannot finish them through that defense, Ha-jun lowers the hammer and gives the injured boss a cold promise instead: next time, he will kill her. Ha-jun disappears first, and the survivors are left furious because they have no choice but to let the irregular walk away. After 2 brutal months in the dungeon, Ha-jun gives up on the boss for now, drained and irritated that even Maharaza could not break its shield. With every quest here finished, he uses time stop and heads back to Liam so they can finally leave. The moment time stop drops, a vast golden eye suddenly appears in front of Ha-jun and speaks in a voice that makes the whole dungeon tremble. Ha-jun recognizes the golden eye as the source behind Lane's power, but it keeps speaking in dragon language he cannot understand. Already fed up, Ha-jun snaps back and tells the eye to go back to its master before he defeats that master again too. The eye stays eerily calm, calls him a transcendent, and then fades away. Ha-jun brushes it off, hauls Liam onto his back, and leaves the dungeon under time stop. Once outside, both of them are taken to the hospital, with Liam admitted for treatment, while Ha-jun only gets a quick checkup. Lee Young-ha questions him about the irregular, and Ha-jun calmly claims that mysterious savior helped them and then disappeared. He also pushes the idea that the irregular wants the whole matter buried, and Lee Young-ha reluctantly agrees to handle it quietly. After that, Ha-jun heads straight back to Rokia and collapses onto his dorm bed, finally back on something softer than dungeon ground. Before sleeping, he opens his windows and sees the payoff from the grind: enough kills to clear a quest and jump 2 more levels. His stats have climbed hard, but not fast enough for what is coming, so he decides he needs the legendary potion from Delher as soon as possible. Only after making that plan does he finally let himself sleep, snoring away a month's worth of exhaustion. Elsewhere, the defeated woman jolts awake in a cold sweat, still reliving the terror of doing nothing but hiding behind her barrier against Ha-jun's hammer. Then a heavy voice reaches her and bluntly tells her the truth she hates most: she lost. She fumes and swears she will kill Ha-jun next time, but the unseen presence cuts her off and says she cannot win like this. The eye-like presence warns her to stay away from Ha-jun entirely, saying revenge will only ruin her fate. That warning shakes her more than the defeat itself, because the eye is acting like it is the one who is afraid. So she asks the real question: who exactly is Ha-jun, and why is that eye afraid of him? After a long silence, the eye finally reveals that Ha-jun is a transcendent, the same kind of absolute being that once trapped it beyond space. The next morning, Ha-jun skips class and goes to Principal Choi Jung-won's office to ask permission to head home for the day. After hearing the rough outline of yesterday's trouble, the principal gladly approves the leave and promises to inform instructor Han Isel. Ha-jun changes into casual clothes, leaves the academy, and heads back to Lee Bear's old apartment to dig for answers. Standing in front of the familiar apartment, he is struck again by how big a place Lee Bear used to live in alone. Since he still does not know the passcode, he discreetly uses time stop and forces the door open just enough to let himself in. Inside, he tears through drawers and wardrobes room by room, searching for anything that might explain who Lee Bear really was. His first strange find is a hidden game console box under the TV stand, which only convinces him that Lee Bear was definitely not some model student. After more searching, he uncovers a far more suspicious black leather box and opens it on the spot. Inside is an old spike-shaped artifact and a worn letter, and the system identifies the weapon only as sealed Ethergia with every useful detail hidden. That hidden artifact feels important enough that Hajun immediately links it to Liber's past. But before he can read the letter properly, someone knocks at the front door and calls him by name. The visitor is exactly who he feared, a woman from the American Hero Association asking to speak with him. Hajun tries to brush her off, but when she insists this is not a scouting pitch, he decides hearing her out now may save him trouble later. Once inside, the American Association agent skips the build-up and hands Hajun a contract right away, confident the terms will speak for themselves. The deal is bizarrely generous, a 3-year contract, $1 million a year guaranteed, and he can still reject any request he does not like. That makes Hajun even more suspicious, so he bluntly asks what America really wants from him. The agent drops the innocent act, flashes a sly smile, and admits America simply wants to build a friendly bridge to Hajun early. The offer is still too good to ignore, so Hajun signs the contract and seals the arrangement with a handshake. As soon as she leaves, the American agent reports the success by phone, and her side makes it clear they are trying to secure the irregular before another major chaos starts in Korea. By lunchtime, Hajun has gone through the envelope and learned 2 things. The letter is written in frustrating code, and the photo shows a silver-haired red-eyed girl who looks like Liber's little sister. Since he cannot crack it himself, he decides to hand the coded letter, photo, and artifact lead over to the Hermes Information Guild later. For the first time in a while, he actually relaxes and spends the day playing Liber's old console game in front of the TV. That break stretches into deep night because the futuristic game hooks him completely, especially one absurdly hard 3rd stage boss. After dying around 50 times, he finally reads the boss pattern and gets the kill within reach at about 2 in the morning. Then the front door explodes inward, and a metal ball flies straight through the room and smashes his TV and console to pieces. Hajun freezes for one stun beat as the ruined machine glows green and starts whining like it is about to blow. A second later the bomb detonates, and turns the living room into a burning wreck. 5 masked intruders walk into the smoke and flames to search the apartment, only to hear Hajun's voice behind them. The instant they turn and see Maharazu in his hand, Hajun's rage explodes and he blows all 5 of them apart in one sweep. From the broken puppet bodies, Hajun immediately figures out who did this and steps outside under Time Stop to hunt him down. He finds the puppeteer waiting at a nearby construction site and drops Time Stop right in front of him. The puppeteer tries to greet him casually, but Hajun cuts him off with pure disgust and calls him what he is, a criminal. Puppeteer smirks and claims the whole apartment building is packed with his hostages, hoping that threat will pin Hajun in place. Instead, Hajun freezes time again and tears through the entire building, destroying every hidden puppet before Puppeteer can even blink. When time starts again, Puppeteer is visibly shaken that Hajun erased every hostage piece in an instant. Puppeteer hastily insists he only came to talk and that the bomb and hostages were just tools to force a meeting. Hajun answers with violence instead of words, using Time Stop to tear Puppeteer's body apart, and leaving only his head alive to understand what just happened. After the blast, Hajun stands in the early dawn chaos and takes in the damage as sirens scream around the apartment complex. Seeing the ruined place he had been living in, Hajun is less shaken than irritated, and his anger settles squarely on the puppeteer. He hates that the puppeteer only strikes through puppets, and with no hideout to target back, Hajun can only hope this warning keeps the coward quiet for a while. Once he confirms the important letter and dagger were saved before the explosion, Hajun checks the time and realizes he cannot stay at the scene all night. In the middle of the confusion, he makes a quick decision and tears up his extra Delher invitation to escape the situation. By 8 in the morning, Hajun has taken refuge at Hermes and explains the whole early morning mess to Guild Master Lorelei Hills. Lorelei points out that the news is already calling him the irregular again, and the TV is busy replaying the apartment attack. When a neighbor claims on TV that the attack looked planned from the day before, Hajun can only scratch his head and sit through the awkward broadcast. Lorelei wonders if leaving the apartment scene was risky, but Hajun stays unconcerned because Chairman Kim Jong-yeon was warned in advance and should clean up the aftermath. With the immediate danger over, Hajun hands Lorelei the dagger, the photos, and the coded letter he recovered as clues. Lorelei studies the items and says the letter is encrypted, but she is pleased they have more leads than expected and promises to contact him once she cracks it. Instead of leaving, Hajun stays seated in thought until Lorelei realizes he is about to ask for even more. Hajun asks Hermes to find alchemist Lee Gaeyeon, and this time he can give a real name and appearance instead of a blind guess. Lorelei is surprised he suddenly wants an alchemist, but Hajun immediately folds in another request involving the old elixir seller in Delher's market. When he asks her to quietly look after that old man too, Lorelei can tell Hajun is setting something up and starts probing with a sharp smile. Hajun never explains his plan, but Lorelei agrees to help anyway, and he thanks her for it. Lorelei immediately balances the scales by saying she has a request for him too. Assuming this is going to cost him, Hajun awkwardly pulls out his card, only for Lorelei to laugh off the money and remind him his favors already total a fortune. She makes it clear this is not a favor but paid work, and Hajun relaxes the moment he hears there is money at the end of it. Lorelei refuses to explain the details yet, leaving Hajun with a vague paid request and no idea what she is planning. The next morning at the academy office, a sleepy Hajun is summoned and shown a flood of student requests the moment the system opens. Han Isol says Hajun is the first student to pull in more than 200 requests at once, and Hajun's first instinct is to ask if he can reject all of them. But among the pile, Han Isol points out one unusual request that was clearly designed to make Hajun accept. The request is from Hermes, carries a top-grade reward, and the mission name instantly tells Hajun what it really is, the ambush episode. Hajun quickly connects it to a protection mission for Isabella Heights, the gifted American enchantment mage coming to Korea for dungeon runs. What really reassures him is that Han Seyoung should be part of this operation, making the team far more reliable in a real fight. So even if he only means to honor the deal for now, Hajun accepts the request on the spot. Han Isol is genuinely surprised that Hajun would take something this troublesome, and Hajun weakly tries to pass it off as diligence. Han Isol immediately shuts that down, saying effort only when necessary does not count as diligence at all. Hajun gets up to leave, expecting the talk to be over, until Han Isol suddenly calls his name in a much more serious tone. Once Hajun sits back down, Han Isol bluntly tells him he is proud of him. Han Isol says he saw the news, knows Hajun was attacked by a villain, and even knows he rescued the hostages. Then the pride turns into a warning as Han Isol tells him never to get careless, because he has seen too many talented heroes die that way. Hajun takes the warning seriously, and Han Isol finally sends him off to rest before tomorrow's request. Monday morning shifts to the airport, where Hajun waits with Han Seyoung and Yuseola for Isabella's arrival from the United States. Hajun already dislikes the setup because the original plan was to fetch her in America, but now she is coming to Korea herself and the mission is already off script. The bigger surprise is Yuseola's presence, because she was never supposed to be part of this operation at all. Yuseola explains that Isabella asked for her help too, and she accepted immediately when she saw Hajun was involved. That only makes Hajun more annoyed, because escorting one high-risk target was bad enough and now he effectively has two. Yuseola tries to ease that by pointing out the disguises, showing off her darkened hair while Han Seyoung has already changed into a blonde foreign look. Hajun shrugs off the need for a disguise himself, since unlike the other two he was hired through Hermes and does not need to follow Isabella's preferences. Right as Yuseola checks the time, Isabella Heights finally appears at the airport exit under a hat, mask, and sunglasses, with 3 bodyguards close behind. Even in disguise, Hajun recognizes her immediately as the American prodigy second only to Liam in fame. Isabella heads straight for Han Seyoung, takes off her sunglasses, and greets him with obvious excitement because she has wanted to meet him for a long time. Their handshake carries a hint of mutual prestige, with Isabella clearly interested in meeting another heir to a legendary hero line. Then Isabella turns to Yuseola and drops the formal edge completely, pulling her into a warm hug like an old friend. The two quickly confirm they know each other well, and Isabella even admits she worried it was risky for Yuseola to come. Yuseola answers that it is fine because Hajun is here, which finally makes Isabella turn and really look at him. When Yuseola reveals that this plain-looking boy is Kim Hajun, Isabella is so shocked she starts circling him to inspect him from every angle. Her first honest conclusion is brutal. There is no way someone with a body this weak should be as strong as the irregular. Isabella grabs his arm and keeps going, bluntly marveling that his build and stamina feel far too poor for someone with his reputation. That is the moment Hajun finally snaps and smacks her on the head hard enough to drop her into a crouch. Yuseola is horrified, Han Seyoung stares in disbelief, and Hajun acts like Isabella fully deserved it. The bodyguards rush in at once and surround Hajun, turning the airport pickup into a public scene. Before it can escalate any further, Isabella stands up, stops her guards, and insists she is fine. She even smiles through it, but the smile is tight, and Hajun can tell she definitely has not forgiven the hit. With the airport disaster behind them, the group heads to the hotel that Isabella arranged and settles in one day before the dungeon run. Later in the hotel, Isabella vents to Yuseola that she still cannot believe Kim Hajun suddenly hit her like that. Yuseola defends him anyway, insisting that Hajun's personality is weird but he is still a good person. That does not persuade Isabella, especially because her own eyes as an enchantment mage still say the boy she met should not possibly be the irregular. Her real confusion is simple. With such an unimpressive physical reading, she cannot understand how he even got in as Rokia's top scorer. Then Isabella notices something else entirely, and tells Yuseola she seems much softer and more at peace than before. Yuseola thinks about it, and admits that peace came from Hajun, because life has felt safer and calmer since he entered it. With that heavier talk out of the way, Isabella brightens instantly, and starts listing all the places she wants to visit today. So Isabella, Yuseola, and Han Seyoung head out to enjoy the city, while Hajun stays behind at the hotel. Part of it is Hajun's own laziness, but one of Isabella's guards also bluntly tells him in English that the young lady does not want to be with him. Instead of arguing, Hajun stretches out on the hotel bed and decides the real trouble will probably come after dark anyway. Alone in the room, he reviews the likely enemy, Barus, a villain group known for stealthy assassin-style ambushes that fit this episode perfectly. He had wanted to leave everything to Han Seyoung, but Yuseola's unexpected involvement has already changed the future enough that Hajun expects penalties for taking it lightly. That realization forces his decision, This time he cannot just coast and will have to move himself. So he chooses the simplest preparation left and goes to sleep to save his strength for the night. But at 1 in the morning, Ha-jun jolts awake to an unexpected situation, and the quiet hotel night suddenly feels wrong.